All right, everybody, welcome to the July 5th meeting? Sorry, July 12th meeting of the HDC. First, I'd like to say the board's actions in these matters has been deemed to be quasi-judicial in nature. If any person believes any member of the board has a conflict of interest, that issue should be raised at this point, or it will be deemed withdrawn. I'm going to make some introductions. We've got a few changes here. Our alternate seat on my extreme right is now vacant. So anybody out there that really feels the need to sit on these meetings, see our mayor. Then I have Dr. Dan Brown.
Good evening.
And Martin Ryan.
Good evening.
Reagan Rudig is missing. Hopefully she is here. My vice chair is Margot Doran.
Good evening.
And my name is John Wyckoff. Our new assistant planner is Isaac Gilbo, and this is his first meeting, but he's been with the planning department a while. So he's right up to speed.
evening.
And we should allow him no breaks for any mistakes that he makes, anything. Our city council member, Rich Blaylock, is going to be here soon after his council meeting, I believe. And then we have Mr. David Adams.
Good evening.
And on my extreme left, Karen Bouffard is ill and not here. So with that said, we're going to move right along to the approval of the minutes. Hopefully you've all checked out these minutes. If anybody's got any comments.
I'll make a motion to approve both sets of minutes as presented.
I'll second that.
All righty. So all those in favor say aye.
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 Anybody against? That was easy. Administrative approvals. I'm going to have Isaac as our presenter. However, I'm going to make a few comments first. I believe number 2, 132 and 34 Middle Street, we're going to pull out because it's a little bit lengthy and needs to be discussed possibly. Number 4, which is 3 Walker Street. We're going to pull that out. And then number 7 is 92 Pleasant Street. And then number 10 is 138 Maplewood Avenue. So we'll be talking about those either first or last.
I do have a couple of other admins that Margot would like to add to our pull-out list if possible. It would be number 870 Court Street.
What number?
Well,
is that?
actually, now that the condensers are not on the list, I don't have a problem. with
Okay.
that. Yeah.
Excuse me. Number 9, my apologies, 37 Whidden Street.
Yes.
And number 10, 138 Maplewood Avenue.
Okay.
Which John, I think, mentioned. Okay.
Okay.
138, which has already been pulled out. And first of all, Mr. David Adams would like to recuse himself from Walton Alley, which is number 1. And number 14 is 113 Mechanic. And number 16 is 189 Gate Street. So we're going to have to deal with some of these separately. I think maybe we should do David's 3 right off the bat so that he may participate in other discussions. All righty, so Walton Alley, what have you got?
Sure. So 1 Walton Alley, the applicant is seeking approval for the replacement of windows to match already replaced windows on the structure. So I will go to that now. Just 1 second. Here are some photos of some of the existing windows that were there in pretty bad shape. They would propose to use Green Mountain windows. Again, these have already been approved at other locations on the structure. And as you can see highlighted in red, these would be the windows on the front and on the side of the structure here that they are proposing to replace with the Green Mountain windows seen here.
All right, now David mentioned to me that he would like to speak as a member of the public on number 1. So is Mr. Adams here?
Chairman.
Yes.
My name's David Adams. I live at 210 Gate Street. I am in a butter of this property. And And earlier in the process, the application was to repair, replace, and the council or the commission chose to a modified sort of somewhat repair and somewhat replace on the sashes, the existing sashes in the building. Some of the sashes to be repaired were the first floor sashes on the front and the mechanics Walton Alley side of the building. And I guess just to say as a caveat here, or I didn't say anything about that because that seemed like those windows existed if they were going to restore them or repair them, that having other windows on the house match that made sense. But now the application has shifted and they no longer want to or are interested in repairing and restoring those windows on the gable end on Walton or on the front facade facing Gate Street. And so the idea of matching those windows comes to me as a problem. I firmly believe that the window openings on the first floor are for 9/6 sashes, not 6/6 sashes. The 6/6 sashes that were there during the part of the application, earlier in the application, were replacement windows that had happened somewhere in the early 1800s. The glass for those 6/6 to fill in for a 9/6 window, the glass was actually 8 by 12.5 rather than 8 by 10, if you want to get really technical. And I live in the technical part of this thing, so I do. So my point is that most of the houses, there is one house on Gate Street that has 55-inch tall sashes that are 6/6. But that's the only one. Every other house, a late 18th and early 19th century house on Gate Street, has 9/6 sashes. My question to the commission, or request to the commission, is that we make a change and ask them to replace those windows with 9/6 sashes, which is much more in keeping. And if you go back over the testimony earlier in the project, one of the things that stuck out for me was the architect suggesting that they wanted to put a cedar shingle roof on the house to have the roof be more in keeping with the character of the building. And so my request now to the commission is to require them to make 9/6 sashes for the first floor windows on the house, because that would be more in keeping with the character of the building.
Thank you very much.
Certainly.
Okay, I'd like to say that we don't normally have the public speaking, but he recused himself from it because he lives next door, and he felt he had to say something, and there it is. Is there any discussion on the board with what Mr. Adams said? Oops.
Well, I think that this house is very close on the Walton Alley side. You know, this is very much a walking neighborhood. People are going to be walking right past these windows. To have them be authentic as possible, I think, is a good goal. I defer to David Adams' expertise. I'm a little surprised that he indicates that not restoring the existing windows is okay. We usually like to restore windows, but I think his point that those themselves are replacement sashes that were not done in the original style is a good point.
Anyone else?
The windows that we approved on the back and the far side, on the first floor, should they also be 9/6 to match everything, or does it matter?
I think we've already approved those.
As 6/6?
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Again, sir? It creates a problem now to have two different kinds of windows, one group of windows 6/6 and one group of windows 9/6. I would suggest that the solution is to make them all as they should be, or as I believe they should be. And the grounds for doing that, because I asked myself this very same question, the grounds for doing that was that the compromise of repair or replace, restore, replace, restore, that compromise was struck believing that some original windows I think inappropriately, were to be reused, and matching those was important, but it was a package of some new windows and some repaired windows. That package is now gone because the applicant is no longer asking to repair those 6/6 windows. I would suggest, I've seen a couple of them, they're in very, very poor condition. I don't know that, I wouldn't want to have to do that, but I think the justification for it is that the application, even though it seems like only one part of it's changing, the application was a package of new windows, some brand new, some restored. When you change that, I think that the whole thing gets changed. I think that would be the appropriate solution.
So I appreciate the concern, I appreciate your concern. However, these windows in the back have been installed. So are we sitting here as judges saying that we're going to ask them to remove windows that we approved that probably cost $2,500, $3,000? Yeah,
We do have someone for the application if they'd like to speak.
okay.
If you don't mind. Mark Giannini from McHenry Architecture, here representing the applicants. To comment on something you were just saying, the windows are not installed yet on the back of the building. I would have to check if they have been ordered or not. I'm not 100% sure, because the intent was to order those several weeks back because of the long lead times. But I guess.
Thank you very much. You
Yeah.
really muddied the waters now.
No, I think the question I would have for you then is, do you have the opportunity to go back and take a look at your orders, what's available from the manufacturer, and see if there's a way to, on the first floor, have the 9/6 and the other ones up at the top?
I mean, we could certainly go back and ask. I don't know where that order is in production at this point.
Okay.
If they've started production, then, there's little,
Yeah.
there's
Do you
probably a little
know that
opportunity
it's
for them
been
to change
ordered?
it.
That they've been ordered? Are you positive they've been ordered?
I am not 100% positive they've been ordered.
So I would suggest that we postpone this till when?
Till the August 2nd meeting. and
The
that's our
August
next-
2nd meeting, and you have to do some homework on your end.
Is there an opportunity to, I guess, find out if you, as members, have a preference one way or the other, and then we could do some more research and then report back to Isaac as far as, if the 9/6 say was appropriate, that we move forward with that, or stay with the 6/6.
I'm not
I,
trying. Go ahead.
I would suggest that, personally, if you were able to work the order so that the first floor windows were 9/6 and the others were 6/6,
Yep.
I think that would work really well. And I would suggest that we approve that. And if you can achieve it, you can go ahead. And if you can't achieve it, then you come back with, this is what we can and can't do.
Okay. And I guess just for clarification, Mr. Adams, I wasn't sure if your thought was that it was just the first floor windows that were 9/6, or really all of them?
The 55-inch windows
Yeah.
that were on the first floor.
Okay.
And it's not every window on the first floor, the ones in the back have already been changed. One of the windows on the gable end on Walton has already been changed.
Yeah.
Previous to you.
Right, so it would really just be the four
Okay,
first
yeah.
floor windows.
So,
John, may I ask, just?
Yes, please.
Just, can we move this to we're going to continue this, but can we move it to out of the admin approval situation? So I'm not sure we're doing the right thing by having public comment on an admin approval. Let's move it out of admin approvals and into a full application. And then this way, I feel better about how we're handling this.
that makes sense. Okay,
Okay, so we can do that. So the decision would then be to not approve the administrative approval, but to have them come back with a clearer plan as a public hearing for the next meeting.
Okay.
Yeah, because I'm worried we've done something wrong here.
yeah. So we need to, postpone this into gosh, how are we going to do this anyways? To turn it into
I'll have to make an application.
a regular,
Motion to continue?
is Nick here?
You can motion to continue as a public hearing to the next meeting, and I can work with the applicant to get the
Okay.
proper documentation submitted on time and all of that.
So I
if
need that
be.
motion and second.
Motion to continue.
Second.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye?
And against? All right.
Thank you.
So we're doing David's here. 113 Mechanic Street, is that hard for you to dig?
Or, 112 Mechanic Street, they actually had to request to postpone to the August meeting, so we can actually
That's good.
skip over that one. The final one that Dave's recusing from would be number 16, and that is 189 Gate Street. So the applicants here would like to install a new fence at the property. I'll pull down a site plan here. So as you can see, the sort of the green and yellow line indicates where the fence location, it's a 6-foot fence, will be. This is a cedar fence, and it's to mimic the styles that are shown here in the photos. These are neighboring properties. They would like their fence to sort of blend in with the neighboring fences.
Okay. Any comments? All right, so all those in favor, say aye.
Aye?
Aye.
Against? All right, so we're all set on that.
Okay, so now, if you want, we can break down and we can go over that group that we wanted to pull out one by one. Is that okay with you, John?
That's fine with
Okay.
me, hopefully with everybody.
We'll start with number 2, 132, 134 Middle Street. The applicant had been before the board for a public hearing for a number of exterior updates, renovations to the property. It was stipulated that the board would like to have the applicant come back for administrative approval for final roofing materials. And so that's what they have come back for tonight for administrative approval. I will quickly scroll down to the roof specs. I'll stop here. They just show some of the existing roof shingles. They're proposing to use the red slate and the gray as shown on the existing, the 2 different colors. And of course, it will be the entire roof that they're proposing to replace here.
And they're the correct size.
That is right. And so this is the sort of spec sheet for that particular slate roofing.
So they're about an inch wider than the 8 inches that's showing today.
Same number.
Let's see.
Well,
Look at that. What do you find?
these old ones are 8, the new ones are 9.
Yep.
It's pretty darn close.
Okay, yes, sorry, yes, you are correct. Yep. So yes, so the proposed are just slightly larger than the existing.
Anybody comments on this?
I was struck, how about this? I was struck by how many of the buildings around there have the alternating colors of red and gray slate. I was surprised to go back to the front of the building, the Middle Street side, and see very little evidence of there having been stripes of red slate on the Middle Street facade. But there are discolored slate. Some of the ones that they were measuring are not the right color. So I'm assuming that some of the red slate bleached out, and so that pattern of red and gray was all the way around all of the building. That's everyone's impression?
Yeah, that's
Yep.
what I know about colors is red and blues they bleach out.
Yeah. The plastic ones probably won't so much.
You don't know.
Interesting. Anyway,
So David, are you asking if the applicant is going to mimic the pattern the same all the way around by taking from the side that hasn't been bleached?
the rear panel is really dramatically, the addition on the rear of the building is dramatically striped, dramatically, and so if they needed a model for it, it's there. But the big house, all the slates there are really greatly bleached out. So I don't know what the applicant is really interested in doing, but it seems like following the pattern of the 2 different colors makes sense, considering the history and how many times we see the same used. But I don't see it picked out in the drawings. That's why I was mentioning it.
So are you asking for a stipulation that they?
Maybe a stipulation, just to be certain.
That they do use the red slate and the gray slate pattern. Yep,
Thank you very much.
On the back of
That's on the back.
that's on the back, exactly. Yep, thank you for that.
That would make me feel great. Otherwise,
Okay.
I think this is a great move. I think the commission should be at large very happy with this.
Yes. So all those in favor, say aye.
All right.
Aye.
Aye.
And those opposed? So they have their approval.
Okay.
What else have we got?
So that will bring us to number 4, which is 3 Walker Street. The applicants for this particular project, they would like to, I'll scroll down to the existing photos here. So here's the existing front porch at 3 Walker Street. The applicant is proposing to replace the existing decking and railing materials with a composite, and to also replace and encapsulate the posts in a more of a square style with a PVC material. The design right down here shows what the proposed look would be like. And again, and then this is just a rendering that they had also given us. The last part of the administrative approval is to actually replace the front door with a similar door here, not the 2 side window pieces, but just the door itself, similar to the 10 Prospect Street project that we've recently approved.
Comments? Anybody?
I like the door. I'm gonna miss the, what do you call it, the supports? The
Brackets?
Decorative supports. so
Posts and the
columns.
brackets.
Brackets, yeah. But I'm not sure how they would look with the squares.
Martin, what do you feel?
The only thing that really jumps out at me that's a little disturbing is the horizontal skirting board. That's being replaced? I've never seen that. We're talking about underneath the porch.
Oh, yes.
That's,
It's very contemporary.
I don't see that that's directly indicated in the application that portion would also be replaced.
Maybe I'm looking at an example that maybe that's not the case. Maybe it's just an example.
Yeah, the below 2 photos would just be examples sort of what the squared off post would look like as proposed.
Okay.
Yeah.
Then no objections.
So are the brackets actually being taken away? Or we just, because they've given us sort of a sample that's a completely different house, and
Yes, so the proposed porch post down here would eliminate the brackets that are currently there, as proposed in the application.
I would ask someone who has more experience with architectural style. I mean, when I look at this house, they seem to be completely in keeping with the style of the house. My concern was the PVC. My experience on my own house with PVC material on railings is that it just stands out like a sore thumb. So that was my concern.
Mr. Adams?
Mr. Chairman, thank you very much. To me, the cladding the turned posts and removing the brackets to me is a non-starter. I don't see how it benefits anyone, enhances the property values of any of the buildings around it, or the integrity of the neighborhood. If there's anything that is classically part of that house, it's the porch posts and brackets.
Is the applicant here?
Hello, John McCormick. I'm representing the owners. The existing posts are rotting at the bottom, so they need to be removed and replaced with something. I could talk to you. I think we could put the brackets back if you want. They didn't look like they fit with the square post to me, but doesn't really matter.
All right. So I haven't got my opinion, but I'm afraid I'm going to definitely have to agree with Mr. Adams. I think the proposal, as it sits, certainly does not meet our guidelines for the historic district.
I installed posts exactly like that, 3 houses up on the top of the hill at 73 Prospect Street.
Top of the Prospect Street? Mm-hmm. Okay, good.
That's that house.
But your house is very visible. Every house we judge separately by the context. I don't remember approving they were round posts and you wrapped them?
No, I built a new structure and we put a new porch
Oh,
on.
you built the new
Yep.
structure, yeah. So you can understand, we're looking at 1895 here, 1900 Victorian home, beautiful porch. I walk by frequently, and you've done wonderful landscaping. It's really just it's one of the landmark houses on Dennett Street, and I'm afraid that I can't support the application. I would remind you that there are other alternatives. There are posts rounded that look like they're turned, but they're made out of
Yeah.
either fiberglass or they're made out of, there are other materials they're made out of, so you get away from that rot problem. Because the one thing I have found as a contractor is that new turned posts that look very much like these, the bottoms of them, 5 years, they're gone. And primarily, one of the things is the fact that they're mostly made out of finger jointed material. So I think at this time, we could vote on this, and then you would have to come back.
What about the railings and the
And
decking?
reapply.
Are we good with that stuff?
Would anybody like to talk about the railings?
I've already said my piece. I think to have a composite deck, I'm less concerned about that because it's on the horizontal plane and not as visible, but railings really stand out.
What kind of materials do you approve for railings?
Joe,
We've seen.
Dr. Brown,
Yeah.
anything? Mr. Adam?
We have approved
have.
composite rails
Not
and,
PVC.
and,
Yes, we
yeah,
have.
as long as they're
But on the
properly, the proper type and the proper picket spacing and picket profile and top rail and bottom rail, I see no objection to a composite or a non-wood material.
Personally, myself, I've installed those, and I don't really have any problem with them. I think, as far as walking by on the sidewalk, they're going to look just as good as the ones you have now. I don't know why you wouldn't want to put wooden ones back on, but your problem is going to be getting them up to the proper height of, 32 to 36 inches, because most of your Victorian rails are low, because the posts, don't accept something that's at the proper height. But I think that the rails, we have a
obviously
couple
can't
people
install
in
them
support.
low again, right? And we have to meet building code for health and safety.
I wish you could somehow speak up a little louder, because I'm just.
You're not suggesting that we install railings below the code minimum, are you, at 42 or 32 inches? Or is that?
Am I suggesting?
No,
you-
I mean, do you say, or what do you, I'm sorry, I missed your point.
My point is that 36 inches is the height,
Mm-hmm.
and you'll have to size your posts accordingly.
Okay.
That's my point. Okay.
Unless you kept these.
Yeah. The ones that are there now, you definitely couldn't, put the rails up at 36 inches.
Right, I guess, I was just thinking in terms of just retaining the railing that's there now, and just if it needs repair, it could be repaired without getting involved in new code compliance.
True.
Well, the posts are rotting from the bottom up.
Yeah.
So may I make a suggestion?
Yeah, so I think we've got a real trouble with you're removing the rounded posts. All this other stuff is superfluous, whether you got the railings at a certain height, and also by removing those brackets. So I think that you know, you're bringing a contemporary look to your little porch, and we're wanting to see it be what it was, what it is, but not rotted. And we could pull a vote on this now.
Or we could suggest that the applicant come back with what they would like to do, having heard our opinions, and if you could include the exact brand, model, whatever, of the railings, knowing exactly what composite material you're choosing would make me feel more comfortable.
Okay.
That's why she's sitting right here. So that's a very good idea. So we're, need to postpone this, or, yeah,
So moved?
yeah, okay.
Seconded?
All those in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed?
Thank you.
Okay.
Next.
All right, so that brings us to number 7, which is 92 Pleasant Street. And again, I would just like to reiterate that this proposal is just going to be for the windows on the structure. The HVAC equipment portion has been taken out of the application at this time.
Oh, we have somebody here. to talk.
Sorry. Hi.
Hello.
I was scheduled to be number 3, and I don't know if you
What?
skipped me.
We're
Purpose.
going a little
Okay.
out of order for certain administrative reasons. We have not forgotten you.
Okay, thank you.
So the applicant would like to replace existing first and second floor windows with Green Mountain windows. There are already 8 Green Mountain windows on the 3rd floor in the dormer living areas that have been approved and replaced. So they would like to match the first and second floor windows with the already approved windows. It is the Green Mountain window that we've seen before. Let me see if I can get. So they just sort of show which, windows on the sides here, and then of course on the front as well.
Okay. Any comments? Okay. So, all those in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Very good.
Okay. All right, that brings us to number 10, and that would be 138 Maplewood Avenue.
We'll do 9.
Oh, excuse me. Yes, number 9, 37 Whidden Street.
Right.
So we'll go in order. So the applicant is seeking approval for the installation of HVAC equipment. It's a condenser. As you can see on the site plan, the condenser is proposed on the rear of the structure, so it will not be seen necessarily from Whidden Street, a public way. It could potentially be seen by neighbors in the back area, but it is hidden mostly by the home itself. Again, just another plot line of where the location of the condenser will go.
I guess my question, Isaac, was the image coming up.
Yes.
That looks like is that 2 condensate lines going up, and what's the fortress? What does that mean? Because that's the side of the house that you can actually see from Whidden. It's tight, but you can see it. So
that
what's going there?
A fortress. What is that?
Well,
What?
are you? Allison? Oh, if you don't mind. My apologies. I may have.
The units are on the inside, those are the gutters that come down on the outside with the equipment.
Is she talking about condensate lines?
Yes,
I think
thank
she
you.
talked about the line sets themselves.
Line sets.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
I don't know
They're-
if I don't know what fortress means, I didn't do this.
Okay.
But if I have a fortress, I will love it.
Yeah. Well, that's what our
I think
problem
this was submitted probably by the HVAC company themselves.
So
So we would have conduit lines shown in the green here.
Might
and
actually
then-
mean 4 trees, but I don't know.
Yeah. It could be
So-
4 trees.
Yep.
So also, a stipulation is that these are painted the same as your siding. Right.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Before we get to that, my question was, is this a single-family home or is it a condominium?
Single family.
Okay. Is there a reason we're running these outside the building? We often see that in cases where it's a two-family and you can't run the lines through somebody else's house. Is there a reason that this was chosen to run on the outside? Was it just the convenience of the installer? Can you give us some information?
I don't know the answer to that question. That's how it was proposed to me, that there didn't seem to be a reason to go inside. Or that wasn't, as I said, that wasn't the proposal.
I mean, I'm asking because in order to keep the buildings looking as original as possible, we try to keep as much equipment off of, hanging off of the sides, but we're very sensitive to the fact that sometimes that's not possible for structural reasons or ownership reasons or
And
whatever.
perhaps because it's plaster walls, they don't want to go through the plaster, up and down.
Any other questions?
No, no. So, does anybody have a motion for this?
I'll just speak to the condensate and chiller lines on the outside. It's easy to install that way. That's why it's being done that way.
Yeah.
But that's not a standard putting them inside the building is not a standard that we put across, at least I felt that we've never put it across the board as we want them inside. A lot of times we approve them on the exterior. We do ask them inside when they're being placed in a situation where there's no other way we have a front of a building that's a high profile building that can be seen. That's when we ask for special considerations. Put them inside so that they don't disrupt the front facade. This is the back, as I understand.
It's the side of the building.
Side, back and side.
Back or side? Okay, so I can support this. I don't think that asking them to put them inside is something that we typically do. So I'll support this application.
Okay. You gotta remember, this is administrative.
And would that be with the stipulation that they're painted to match,
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
siding of the house? Okay. Yeah.
So is this, is this?
Just to continue that bit of the conversation, it's not part of the public way, so to speak. Very few people walk all the way down to the end of this street. It's the second to last or third to last house on the street. It's on the side in an alleyway. It is not a prominent part of the building. Mr. Wyckoff over the last few years has said that when the next technology comes along, these will all get taken off and become part of the dustbin of history. But I would just say that the one thing that is going to happen here is these line sets that are being put up the side of the building are, I don't know, I'm just going to throw a number and say 9.5 feet from the next door neighbor's house. And they have windows on that side of their house, as most people do.
Yeah.
So while it's not a public thing, it is a private view that I don't think these things are beautiful or striking. I don't think there's anything architecturally beneficial about them. I'm certainly not going to get a set of them to put on the front of my house. But you're right, Mr. Ryan, that we don't commonly deny these things because they're on the outsides.
But we do ask for an enclosure of the unit, and I'm not seeing that here.
It's in the,
It's on the back.
Okay.
It's, if you look at our guidelines, I hate to say this, I've said it before, but in our guidelines, it does say mechanical equipment on the back of the house.
I thought it was on the side, so that's fine with me.
No, it's on the back.
I get
It's-
it.
it's
unless
both.
unless a fortress is a piece of equipment that we don't know about.
That's going to be made out of Lincoln logs. So there again, I'd like to ask for a motion, please.
So I think Martin has already made a motion, and I think
Oh.
if we could just stipulate the painting.
Yeah.
And that
Yeah.
any mechanical units, boxes that make noise are either in the back, or if they're on the side, you'll tell us, and that you'll come back with a screening of some kind.
there's one unit in the back, and we will do just that.
Perfect.
Okay,
I,
second?
second? Yes.
All right, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Against? All righty.
Okay.
So now we can just go into.
Yes, that will bring us into actually 138 Maplewood Avenue will be the last one that we wanted to pull out, and then we can get into quickly going over the rest of those. So 138 Maplewood Avenue, the applicants are proposing several different changes that have gone on at the property. I actually see that the applicant's already walking on up, so I will let Ann take the floor here and just explain what has been going on.
Yeah, what's been going on?
What's been going on?
Hi,
Well,
Ann.
they didn't consult, when they made some changes to the previously approved plans. I'll just take them one by one. We had come back for that entry on that first page, the drawing on the left, on the right. I had a larger, roof enclosure with the lights on the inside. And for some reason, they did this smaller roof with lights on either side of that roof. To change it back, we'd really have to move all of those lights. And so I had thought a solution for that would be to do the brackets, but, have 5/4 backing behind them and just let the roof stay as it is, but get the brackets in with the 5/4 backing, and that drawing below there, as built with added brackets, is what we're proposing for that situation. So that's number one. Number two, on the porch end, they're created a screen, which, it's a public way with lots of parking, a lot of commercial next door. And unfortunately, they put the screening on top of the column. And they would like to keep it like that, but I thought of compromise. I don't mind the screening so much, but I think it should get moved in so you see the edge of the column. We'll get it to the columns a little bit later. So that's the second proposal.
Could I interrupt you for 1 minute?
Sure.
Does anyone here have any heartburn with the fact these are horizontal boards here, as far as the screening goes?
No?
No? No?
If framed as separated as the applicant is suggesting, I think the horizontal boards are not difficult for me.
Okay, fine.
It's a fairly horizontal structure, and I thought, I didn't mind it when I saw it, but I just said, I wish he'd called me and we could have just set them in onto the columns.
Nailing them over the post was,
Yeah.
yeah. What were they doing? Okay, what's next?
Okay, so this is issues that are on this south elevation. If you go to the next page, they haven't put the cupola back. When they took it off, it was completely gone and not repairable. And so they haven't put it back yet. If you look at the last page, they've picked out a cupola that's a similar proportion, not quite as tall, 30-inch square. And if they'd like to maybe not have the cupola, you can't really see this. Where I took that photo of that south elevation without the cupola is actually in the yard on the sidewalk of the abutting building. You can't really see it from the street. The only place you could possibly see it is going over the bridge on Maplewood, but it's a real distant view. But if they'd like to see a cupola, this is the one on the last page is what they're proposing to put on there.
Okay, the
And
cupola.
This addition is a modern addition, isn't it, if I recall?
What's that?
This is a modern addition. This thing in the back was not an original barn from the 18-somethings. It
No,
was built in
no.
1980.
No, it's not. No.
Then I don't see a reason to put a fake cupola on something that wasn't.
It was put on as a decorative cupola at the time when it was built. I can't remember. I think it was the 70s or 60s when this was built. I don't have that recollection. The last change on this, well, actually it affects the whole building, is the gutters. We had talked about doing more of a fiberglass, sort of a crown type gutter. And the trim ended up getting more like the building in front. The other building that's on this property. So the detailing of the roof trim is very similar. If you again go to that south elevation on the second page, the building next door that's part of this property, the detailing and colors and everything more match that building. But they do want to put gutters on, and they are just proposing to do aluminum gutters. Since it's a hip, they'll go, all the way around.
Okay, so the difference is this has that wonderful little shadow board, which accounts for trim nowadays. Mm-hmm. And you're saying that's the reason why the fiberglass can't go on?
Well, yeah, it'd be hard to do the fiberglass now because they've already trimmed it out and with
So the shadow board doesn't have to be removed to put the aluminum?
Yeah, they just block out the gutter a bit.
And they can't block out to put the fiberglass one?
No, the way it goes on is a little flange, and yep. They would have to do a fair amount of taking apart and putting back together.
Any other comments about this?
John, I would just say that in terms of the weather vane, the cupola, if the applicant wants it, I wouldn't, I'd have to see it in elevation to see if it looks,
Right.
but I'm not sure it's a strong push, is it? The cupola?
No, I think at this point, the way costs are, that's at the end of the project, and.
Sure.
Okay, can I continue?
Mr. Brown Dr. Brown once having one of the grandest cupolas in Portsmouth.
I'll miss it, but it does look, not official or not. It
So-
looks, yeah, I would rather in that building probably not put a new one like that on it.
I'm afraid it sounds big, 30 by 30, but you put it up there on that roof.
No, it's
30
very
by-
similar width to the one that came down. It's just a little shorter.
Yeah, it's just probably going to look, like just a pathetic little cupola that's been stuck up there.
Yep. It's not was never an old barn that
No,
cupola was used for ventilation.
Doesn't have
or-
raccoons
yeah.
living in it and stuff. Only Dr. Brown would know what I'm speaking about. So, we have, the cupola apparently has been left, and we were on the gutters. Is that the last thing?
Nope, next page.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yep. Number 5, the columns I had originally done as, round tapered columns with, Tuscan caps and bases. The detailing of this building, which I don't really mind, is gotten more sort of contemporary and just simple. And the building next door has got a very similar column. So these are similar dimension columns, but they're just simply square trimmed out columns with a base and a cap.
Any comments on the columns? No?
No.
I think that you're saying that these columns are trimmed out is a very liberal.
No, it's
use
just basically a square column
of
with a
the
square
word.
cap and a square base.
Yeah.
Yep.
They just knocked some wood around the top and bottom and went home.
Yeah, but although the
I don't think
proportions
it's
aren't
wood.
bad, and, this building, the original garage was kind of, it's a big building, but it had like crown molding, and it was a little more delicately detailed. But with this addition, I can kind of see a bit, to go with a more simple, more modern detailing like this, I don't think is detrimental. Plus, it's on the back of the building, not really visible from the street.
I mean, the problem that I have with this is that you're using a simplification of detail number 1 to justify 2, 3, 4, and 5, and you're using each one of those as saying, well, it's kind of simple now. And it wasn't simple when we approved it. You had round columns, you had a nice doorway roof, love it or leave it. You had a cupola, you had the fiberglass gutters, which don't look any different. So
They don't look that different, no.
yeah, but so what I'm seeing is a simplification as you go The building gets cheaper and cheaper as they keep working. And that's what I object to, the fact that they did it. So, I don't know. Does
And I-
anyone else feel any other emotion like I have? But
I agree with you. I think we keep just seeing this thing like, it got this way, it got that way. And
Unfortunately, they didn't consult at that time. I was pretty involved in the project, and this porch was one of the last things that sort of happened. And, it's been like almost a year, and all of a sudden I go down and the roofs got on and they have changed. And I guess I agree, I'd preferred if it would, but I don't think it's terrible the way it's detailed.
No.
I think it's in keeping with the building in front, it's in the back of the building.
But I think John wants somebody to be punished for this. And
It's not punishment. It's not punishment, although I would certainly have a good talk with the contractors.
I know how to get their attention.
Yeah, I know how to get their attention. Personally, I feel that the most egregious part of this is the columns. And I feel that since we approved round columns, Tuscan columns, they would make a big difference on this side of the house that faces the North Mill Pond, the water side of the house. There again, it's kind of like, I mean, this is, in its location, this is a very valuable structure, and I've said this to some other people, and I'm going to say it again, it's kind of like putting cheap tires on a Ferrari. You've got a brand-new car that costs you $150,000, and you're going to just do something that doesn't match what you own. You might as well not touch it. So myself, the columns, I just, the breaking point. So I can't support the changes as they are.
En masse, or can we take things individually? I have a couple more.
They're Tuscan columns, they have a nice,
No, I know, I understand about the columns, but there's quite a few other items that we're here for.
I'm trying to let the other items slide.
Okay.
Obviously, the privacy wall then would have to be placed in the center of the column.
Yep,
Ooh, a carpentry problem,
yeah,
but they
we
can-
might actually bring it so it doesn't have to get scribed in, it might just get
Yeah.
a bit of a gap there. It has to be detailed.
So apparently I'm the only one that has this particular problem.
Look, you're the only one that has a particular problem. I feel very badly for what has happened to your door covering. I mean, I think you've done the best you can to fix it without making them fix it, but it's definitely not as nice as it was before, and I find that more egregious than the columns. However, I would support going forward. I think Anne's done the best she can to rescue this, and I don't feel like punishing anybody today.
I'm not punishing.
For what it's worth, I'm in Camp Column.
Excuse me?
I'm in agreement with Mr. Wyckoff
Okay.
over the columns. The rest of the stuff, we've seen stuff like that so many times, but the columns really have an impact to that porch, that overhang, that view. Someday, someone will be in that river looking back and say, what the heck happened here? And along with everything else and holding people's feet to the fire, and I'm not, maybe I am whining, but it seems like we put an awful lot of energy into being here for you. And you put a fair amount of energy in being here for us. And the people that were all the tip of the spear are people that don't seem to give one sweet something or other.
Yeah. Okay.
There are a few other items, shall I continue?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah,
Yep.
keep going.
Number
Keep
6.
going.
You look at the porch, as-built porch with the square columns on the left-hand side, which is sort of out of view. I had originally spec'd a wooden handrail with balusters. And if you look on the upper right, obviously that's a stair railing, but they are proposing, and they've already got it fabricated, to just put a metal rail with the horizontal black balusters there.
Is that just on the side between the
Just,
corner?
yeah, because there's a retaining wall on that left side. It drops down about 3.5, 4 feet.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Yeah, so you need to have a guard there. It's pretty not seen from much of anywhere unless you're on the porch. And then the other two items on the east elevation, which is similar, the little hip-roofed side door. They'd originally wanted to do a little shed roof that matched a little shed roof over the door that was in the adjacent building. And they decided to do the hip roof with the brackets. I'm suggesting that they take those brackets off and get some 5/4 behind them, and that we leave the hip roof as it is. I would have preferred to do that to begin with, but they were trying to match a roof that's on the adjacent building that's part of the property. So that as-built garage side door and roof, that will stay the same, except that we'll get some 5/4 behind those brackets. Similar to what I did on the front door.
Could I ask you, this metal rail, does it have horizontal?
Yes. And the only other change was I had a bigger light door into the garage, and they wanted a little more security on that side garage door, so they did the 6/2 panel as opposed to a 4 light over 1 panel. That's in a little alley between the two buildings. So,
Okay. So, we've all heard. Somebody make a motion.
John, I'll make a motion to accept the changes that we've seen, but we want the columns to be what they were approved. And I'm open for discussion with that. I think someone, just like you simply said, Mr. Adams, out of hell with it. Just do it square. Save some money, cheap. We don't care.
Yeah.
And we do put time into this, so, yeah, we're on columns.
I'll second.
All right, we have a second. So I'm going to agree with Mr. Ryan's stipulation. And David, are you going to do that also?
I will second that, yes.
Yeah. All righty.
Did you want to add a stipulation about the screening to be pulled back to the edge of the column versus
I thought that-
covering the column?
Oh, so I see what you're saying. So what we're saying is that we approve all of this as presented, except that the square columns are denied.
Yes.
And the screening can stay in place, but it must come to the center of the new round column.
Correct.
Okay.
Okay, great.
Yep. Great. All righty. So all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
thank you.
Okay, thanks. Okay, so that will bring us, we're now done with the items that we have pulled out. We can now just run through, hopefully very quickly, the last remaining items. Hopefully they are not too in-depth. So we'll go back up. I believe we would be starting with number 3, and that's 303 Pleasant Street.
Got 'em.
This has come to us before. It was here, I believe, just last month. The applicant, I'm just going to skip ahead really quickly. They got approval. This was the existing stair at the property. They got approval just last month to just change the direction of the stairs. What they've come back for is for approval of the railing design, which, as you can see, has been imposed over the existing stairs, and then there's just another rendering of that. Okay, any questions on the rail? Okay, I'll move right along then. So the next one will be number 5. That's 111 Bridge Street, Unit 205. The applicant here is proposing an awning system for just one portion of the property, and I will get that. So as you can see here, it would be an awning system for this portion here. It'd be over the rooftop deck that's existing. Here's the existing view now, and then of course you can see what that awning system would look like. It's fairly simple black awning. Do we have any questions on that one? All
So
right.
these are all independently owned units, and so this is one owner asking for the awning.
That's correct. It's just for that one particular portion. Yes, it doesn't span sort of the entirety of the building. Okay, so we'll move right along then. The next one is also at 111 Bridge Street. However, this is for lighted signage at the entrance. So the applicants are seeking approval to install this particular sign, as I mentioned, for the residences at 111 Bridge Street. Here's a close-up of just what that will look like, the text. And here, of course, is the proposed lighting that they've chosen. And do we have any discussion or questions on that one? Okay. So we'll move right along. Our next item will be number 8. That's 70 Court Street. The applicants here are proposing lighting for various parts of the building. The HVAC component at this point has been just taken out of the application. We are working internally with the applicant on just a few finer details on that. However, we will be approving hopefully the lighting, as you can see. So this is the proposed lighting for the front of the structure here. As you can see, the view from Court Street. And we've got a couple of other entrance points here that have additional lighting fixtures as well. And these are just sort of spec sheets for the proposed lights. Do we have any sort of further questions on the lighting portion for this particular application?
I think it's pretty basic, but you probably should mention the reason that we're not dealing with the condenser, and there's actually 5 condensers there now.
Yes, there are 6 existing condensers. There's a 7th one that would like to be added. However, there is a need for a BOA approval, a Board of Adjustment approval. So we'll have to handle that at another time.
If you want to introduce yourself.
Good evening again, Andrew Simonis, 70 Court Street. There are 6 currently. It was just a discrepancy with needing one for the manager's apartment down low in the lower level. We did not need to run any line sets or anything up the side of the building. We went ahead and pulled them back from the street side, and we're enclosing them with a barrier perimeter block. So that was previously approved, and hopefully we can just remedy this and be moving forward.
Yeah.
Yep.
Those lights are accurate as well. So those are the actual representations.
I didn't hear him. What's the lights?
Just that those are the exact lights that will be going.
Oh, very good, yeah.
Okay.
Is anyone else puzzled by the fact that each of the lights is of a different period? I mean, we have colonial fixtures, we have arts and crafts fixtures, we got the gasoline station fixtures. It seems like we're covering a lot of ground here. I mean, I like them all, but I don't see how they relate to each other or the building.
Yeah, I can try to speak to that, and you're not incorrect. I would say that the doghouse portion of that building is not original. That was added in the mid-1940s and 50s.
So it's a period correct light is what you're saying.
Yeah, and not that I want to be inconsistent with the relevance here, but we just found that that was the most appropriate. That's also an ADA entrance, so we needed a little bit of a different illumination to give that ADA entrance and the button that associates with that ADA ramp more of an appropriate light.
Clever.
Sometimes.
Okay.
Okay. Any other questions on that one from the commission? Okay. All right. Thank you.
Just one, we're holding on the condensers?
Holding on the the 7th one. The 6 are already installed. They were approved. The 7th one is just, again, we just need to internally figure that one out really quick.
And we will not have to come back after the fact. Is that accurate?
All right.
I will need to clarify that. I'll reach out to you, though. I've got your contact. We can touch base on that.
Beautiful. Thank you.
All right. So then it looks like our next admin approval will be number 11, and that's 145 Maplewood Avenue. So this particular project is to install a memorial at the existing Pocket Park, and I will get that a little bit larger. So the memorial is this sort of sailboat structure that you see here, and it is at the corner of Rains Avenue and Maplewood Avenue at this existing Pocket Park here. And does the commission have questions on that?
Trying to remember if the material, aluminum sails, granite gunnels,
Granite boat.
just the two materials, no other materials.
Just to throw it out there, if it helps, there was, when this project was approved through the HCC, there wasn't a full structure that was presented at the time, but there was sort of a
Thing.
to be structure.
Yes.
So if that helps at all.
I remember.
Could we learn more about the piece itself? I mean, a memorial to who? What?
Yeah, thank you very much.
Hi, John Stebbins, 390 Richards Avenue, and
Hi, Josh Parsons, 19 Poplar Street, Gloucester, Mass.
and
And I'm Sally Stebbins.
so one of the owners of 145 Maplewood, as my mom is as well. This was there was always planned to be a sculpture in this location. After this building was finished, my dad and Sally's husband Mark passed away, and so Sally has generously donated this sculpture. We ran a process through 3S Art Space. We received 56 applicants.
A lot of applicants, yeah.
We were really impressed with the quantity and quality of applicants, proposals for art. We interviewed 3, and we selected Josh as the artist. This was Josh's proposal. We've worked with Josh to slightly manipulate it to better fit the space, making it a little bit larger. And we thought that the representation of the sailboat fit the location very well, given the size and also the fact that this was a historic sailboat manufacturing facility. And my dad, Mark and Sally's husband, love sailing. So, Josh, do you want to speak a little bit about the sculpture?
Yeah, sure. So the sculpture is going to be about 14 foot high. It's made out of 1/4-inch aluminum framing, so it actually creates a very rigid waffle structure. On the outside, we're going to plate it with about 1/8 aluminum plating. It's all made in 5000 series aluminum. So we're actually applying some of the techniques that you use in the boat building industry to actually create this structure here. So the structure will be very durable and stiff. Then it's going to be hand-faired and painted with some marine paint as well. So it's going to actually look white in there. And the system below it that we're looking at designing is a granite gunnel system. There's still some changes on that we're looking at doing. But other than that, the overall shape length will be about 7 feet. From bow to stern, if you will, and about 7 feet wide as well.
Okay. That's a fast little boat there.
That's a fast little boat.
Yeah. So I do remember when your father and Mark passed, and it was very sad. He did an awful lot, and with Procon, I believe.
Yes.
Are you going to have a plaque or something on here that says in?
We haven't determined that Sally would like some sort of
I
inscription.
would like inscription maybe at the base, just to sort of make some mention of who Mark was and
Yeah.
what he represented and his contributions to.
I don't know. I think I speak for the board when I say that the memorial plaque would certainly be approved with whatever you decide to put on there for text. So does that appear to be right? And I walk by your building all the time because I live on the other side of the mill pond and always looked at that grass space. and trying to, rattle my brain a little bit. Why is that just a grass space there? And now it all makes sense. So thank you very much.
The intention is to have some enhanced landscaping, hardscaping around
Yeah.
the sculpture as well, and understanding is that's a planning board approval process, so.
Very good.
So,
Well, it's good to know there's a good story behind it, and that it's well thought out and well considered. And,
Yep.
so thank you, yes.
so
Do you think it's big enough?
I did, that's a good question. I mean, I thought it looked a little bit of a toy boat, but
It's pretty 14 feet tall.
15
So
feet tall.
when the sails get too large, we run into some structural problems. It becomes, it is a sail, and so it does catch the wind.
The
And
mill pond's right there.
the mill pond is right there. There's very little to block the wind right now. So we would have liked it a little bit larger, frankly, but we felt that this was as large as we could reasonably achieve.
the,
Number 11.
the two trees that are showing right now in the rendering, I'm racking my brain to remember if they're there now.
There's currently 3.
There are currently 3.
Yeah, there's currently 3. The hardscaping will be, so that one of the existing trees is a little bit too close to the sculpture. And we are proposing enhanced hardscaping around the sculpture so that the public can go up and walk around it. So there really wouldn't be enough space for 3 trees.
The only feedback that I'm going to give you is the unfortunate practical feedback of skateboarders using these sorts of raised granite structures for their amusement, and it destroys the granite. So that, I think, is something you might want to think about in terms of the final details of your construction.
Maybe we'll have to put some cleats up there.
Yeah.
Yes, I think the Portsmouth Public Library has little ball peen.
We did have to install someone and they have been active around the existing granite steps. So,
Yep.
thank you.
All right, any other questions or all right, thank you, folks. We're all set.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
All right, so that will bring us down to number 12, which is 161 Deer Street. So this is a pretty straightforward application. The applicants would like to install this lighting fixture here at several locations around the property. Let me zoom that in. So you can see here they've pointed out all the various locations all around. And then here's just a site plan overview showing just again where all of those lights will be, all the same style. Do you have any questions on the light fixture or the locations?
Dark sky.
Dark sky compliant. Do you want me to make that a stipulation if we approve?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah,
Are they closed on the top? That would be
It
the,
appears to be, I just don't know that. Mr.
Sure.
Chairman.
Sure.
I thought they're very, very simple, and that is in keeping with the sort of industrial feel of the rest of the building. But on the Deer Street elevation, I was just a little worried that they would look too plain, too boxy. But we don't have a built structure, so it's so hard to choose something this detailed and this small when you are still working with renderings.
okay. Anybody else feel that they're too small? Too large on the Deer Street side?
Too simple, I think, is
More too simple versus
Oh,
too
too
small.
it's too simple.
Okay.
Well,
But I don't have a strong feeling one way or the other. I'd almost like to not decide now, just because it's all theoretical right now.
They weigh 20 pounds.
Good evening,
Carla.
Carla Goodnight from CJ Architects. I think I can help you through this thought process. On page 1.0, they are dark sky compliant. We did note that on the specification. And the process here is, as you know from the original approval, if you could look back, look at the elevations, we have industrial slant to this design for sure. We also have some pretty intricate grill work in the cross-hatched and pattern. And that is really the showcase of the building. And the light fixtures have a decidedly sort of I-beam shape to them, which I thought was really appropriate. This is also a stipulation of the planning board that we get this light fixture approved, so it's kind of holding up a lot of planning board related items, which is why we really need to have brought this one thing forward at this time to, for your approval and consideration.
Okay.
The size is pretty significant, but I think that any sort of strong design element in the light fixture is going to detract significantly from the grill work that we all sort of thought was the signature piece of the building.
Thank you.
Okay.
Any other questions on that?
I have no, it looks, to me, it looks like a section of steel, steel section, and we have an industrial building, and to me, it seems appropriate.
Okay. All right, moving on. Number 13 is 179 Pleasant Street. And we have a number of changes that are proposed. I'll quickly just run through them. Number one is to raise transom windows and canopy height at the back addition. Number two is to add a dormer to the addition behind the carriage house and delete
Excuse
a
me,
window.
Isaac,
Oh, yes.
but besides raising the transom windows, they are also raising that shed roof over these arched windows, which I feel is important.
Yes, thank you.
Gives them some breathing room.
Yes, exactly. So you can see those first two changes here. Moving on, it's proposed to put a dormer where one currently does not exist and to move this door just over to the right. On this proposed side elevation, we have the removal of a lower window, two lower windows, excuse me, here. And then also we have a window relocation and change over on the right-hand side to raise windows up as well. And as we move along to the rear, as you can see on sort of the left-hand side, the windows have moved over to the right just a little bit from where they were proposed. An existing doorway has been deleted. And we again have a relocation and redesign of windows on this part here above the rounded doorway. And then the last item, let's see, and also in a slightly elevated canopy to the right-hand side. And the last portion would just be a brick chimney mock-up that they've provided here as well. And Carla, if I missed anything or there were several changes, but if I missed anything, please feel free to correct me.
Hold his feet to the fire.
Do we have questions?
Now, David, did you get a chance to look at this mock-up?
I did.
You did.
I did. It disturbed me.
Oh, it's disturbing, okay?
I don't understand why it's on chipboard. I don't understand why they are using brick that have been resawn down to 3/8 of an inch thick or maybe ½ inch. And I don't understand why they would have a mock-up that has a running crack up the corner of it. It just doesn't seem very durable.
Yeah.
So I'm puzzled.
These are real questions.
So regarding the brick mock-up, we have reconstructed the shape of the brick based on the photographs and the documentation of the original chimney that was over the annex, and it is being supported by steel structure and being replicated above the roof. So it's a weight issue. It's pretty heavy as it is. So that's what we have done, is create that mock-up based on that.
I don't understand that.
They are
These are
water-struck
regular
brick.
bricks,
They're water-struck brick.
but these are not, these haven't been run over or any kind of bandsaw, they're not veneer bricks, or are they?
They're thin brick. They've been reduced in weight, in size, so they're being mortared on. They're still mortared on. I mean, I know you're familiar with what thin brick is, but the three-dimensional pieces where the brick is, are we looking where you can see it right there, where the brick has corbelling out and has all the detail that's being replicated from the original chimney, those are full brick.
And the backer board,
That is, I don't know what they have there for that mock-up. I think that the thought was not really structural consideration, since this will be, discarded. So I think the plan was simply to create the brick skin for your approval.
yeah, so the possibility they might have picked up a scrap, and used it to make this mock-up.
All kinds of things are possible, just the sample that they provided for me to go and look at
Yeah.
has failed.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't recommend that this commission vote to approve that. I'm also surprised that the commission voted to have this chimney removed from the building and a model of a chimney put on the roof.
Yeah. The building was totally removed and lifted, a foot and a half.
Sure.
You remember that?
I do remember
Yeah.
that. Thank
Can I-
you.
Yeah, I understand your concern about constructability, but in terms of profile and, that's a different story. I'm seeing a stamp on this. This is not a regular OSB board. This is probably some kind of WeatherTech engineered sheathing. So, I wouldn't invest, thousands of dollars worth of craftsmanship masonry on something that wouldn't stand. So
Right.
I'm going to trust that this is acceptable, and it looks like a lot of detail and craftsmanship is going into it.
Is this going to be painted in this colonial style?
The
Or is it
owner
going to be left?
has requested that we return back to the black and white paint. That has been a request, that they want to return to that, the original finish as shown on the photographs on the right. So it will be painted ultimately.
If I could just say that the other changes, for the most part, are improvements as far as especially 1.0, I think is a far better, compositionally far better as an elevation than previously approved. So,
I agree. Well, if there's no other questions, what else have we got?
All right. The last one on sort of our quick list here would be number 15 would be 401 State Street. This proposal is for HVAC equipment. This is the library restaurant. I'll skip over this one just for now. This is an existing vent from the kitchen area. They would like to replace it with this shown unit. It is slightly larger, but it would go in the exact same place that the current one exists. It wouldn't necessarily require additional land use approval, even though it's slightly larger, but I did just want to iterate that fact. So as you can see, this is a better view of where that existing vent is. As you can see, there's other venting and exhaust equipment already on this sort of courtyard area. There are wall units for the various residences as well. The second half of this proposal is to install an AC condenser where the red marking is here. So it'd be right above the existing vent. And this is sort of, just an example of what that condenser would look like, pretty basic.
So the line sets for this condenser,
I was told that they would be able, because it is servicing this part of the kitchen on the first floor, they should be able to go directly in versus having to run those up, down, or sideways.
Good.
If that's to change, I can always have them come back for approval if that's the case.
No, that's a good thing. Any questions on this?
Sorry?
Hi, I'm Adrienne Waterman from the Library Restaurant. So you're absolutely correct that the condenser will go directly into the kitchen, directly behind it. There's no, it's just through the wall.
Instant cooling?
We hope so. It's 150 degrees in there.
I bet it is. Yeah.
So
Thank you very much.
What is there a particular plan for what happens to the hole in the side of the building that's behind this unit that's there now?
It'll be exactly the same. There's no additional expansion, changes, anything. We'll still be using the hole in the wall.
So this are you talking about this existing?
There's an existing unit which looks lethal, to be honest with you.
Yeah, right. So that's going to be removed, and then this unit right up here on the screen will be. It's just a little bit larger than the existing. It will be in place where that current one is. So that one will replace this one here.
The drawing that you sent us, the next page,
Yes.
if you blow up that, you'll see that the unit is going to be actually installed on the wall, and it's going to be installed completely above where this is. So what happens to hole where this unit is taken out?
So I think the confusion is that we're talking about a vent and a condenser. So the new vent replaces the old one, and the condenser goes above it.
I see.
That's
where you're
correct.
going. I see. Thank you.
Sorry for the confusion, Dave.
Thank you.
All right. Any further questions on that? Okay. Well, then I guess what we would need to do is just go through the ones that we sort of had as a consent agenda, and we can.
We'll just vote on these.
So it would be numbers 3, 5, 6, 8, 11, 12, 13, and 15.
And did any of those have particular stipulations?
So the only one that I'm really seeing that we had, one of them was under 12 was just to make sure it was dark sky compliant, but that is in the application materials. So I don't think we need to further stipulate that.
Okay.
We did, let's see. I think the rest of those are actually, the rest of those are good. Yep.
So we've had the numbers. Would somebody like to make a motion, please? Move on.
I will make a motion to approve with the single stipulation included.
Is there a second?
Second?
So all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Chair votes aye. Against?
I'm going to vote against, Mr. Chairman, just simply because I don't have any confidence in item number, I think it was 13.
Okay.
And so because of the web mechanics of how we're doing this, I have to deny.
All right.
Okay.
So we have the approval, and I guess the chair would like to say welcome to Councillor Blaylock.
Thank you. Good evening.
Yep. So we're now moving on to, excuse me,
Request to postpone.
we could take a break?
Nope.
Okay. So would anyone like to take a break after a little bit of a lengthy thing? No? No, we're all tough, aren't we here? Okay. So this says work sessions. What's that? That was postponed.
Postponed.
Postponed. Have they removed it, or should we postpone it?
Oh, no, that was their request.
Okay, that was their request.
You just need to read it.
So, we could do public hearings. So we're up to petition of 129 State Street LLC owner for property located at 129 State Street, wherein permission is requested to allow exterior renovations to an existing structure. Modifications to windows, skylights, door, canopy, and railing design, size, and location. Excuse me. And add masonry parapet as per plans on file in the planning department. Said property is shown on Assessor Map 107 as Lot 47, lies within Character District 4 and Historic Districts. So who is here to speak on this?
Good evening, Chairman, members of the Commission, and staff. My name is Shane Forsley with Hampshire Development Corporation on behalf of the owners of 129 State Street. We're here before you tonight, and I'd like to first request that you bifurcate the application for this project. The information that was provided came in 2 packets, and so what we're seeking to do tonight is to review the parapet package, which is a simple 1-sheet for your review and approval or discussion, and then move to a work session for the larger packet of proposed changes.
I think we can do that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So would you want to do the public hearing portion of that first and then break
Yeah.
that into the work session? Okay.
Yeah, why don't we do the parapet, and then we'll do our work session.
Great, and at this point, I'll introduce Howard Spivak. You saw him last month, and he's the lead architect for the project.
And Howard, am I on the correct page for this portion? Okay,
Yes.
great.
So we heard your comments last month about wanting additional detail, and we've added additional detail, and hopefully we've addressed your concerns. We've shown the step flashing. We've shown the continuous clip holding the top aluminum coping on. We've shown the through-all flash, the flashing on both sides. And so we're going to be doing liquid underneath the asphalt shingles, then the shingles are going in, and then we're doing copper on top with the step flashing in reglets. Actually, the first, where we rebuild the wall, we're doing a flashing going into the wall. The reglets will only be on the fireplace and the chimneys.
Questions, concerns, or whatever? Martin, you were the one that raised the concerns with the flashing,
I
and
did.
the caps.
I did, and I think everything is covered. I think this is nicely detailed, and I think some of the stepping is going to take some real craftsmanship to pull off, but the detail is drawn, I believe, appropriately, and so I can support this. I think this works.
Okay. Any questions on your side, Dave? Oh,
all looks good to me.
And Rich?
It looks fine to me.
Yeah. All righty, so I'm going to ask anybody in the public to speak on this parapet, and then we'll vote on just the parapet.
No.
Oh, there we go. Okay.
Good evening. Marie Bodie, 121 State Street. I would like to remind the commission that at the last meeting, there were conversations and concerns about how we could go from a work session to a public hearing. Now we're at a public hearing going to a work session. So I think I would again bring up that the process and the public notice that went out was that this was going to be a public hearing, not a work session. So I think we are misstepping yet again. You have plans, this comment, quote unquote, bifurcating. When are these people going to get their act together and do things in the right process of order? I encourage you to reconsider going into work session. If you choose to, I will sit. I'm not sure if I'm able to sit up there, but I do have a number of comments and yet again misrepresentations that are on the plans that were submitted that are part of public record, et cetera, et cetera. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Certainly you could sit close to the table. I'm not sure if there's enough room with all the members, but if there is, you may sit there on the work session.
Your Honor, we do have public comment during work sessions as well, correct?
Yes, we have public comment after the work session also. That's correct. So if there's no other public comments, I'm going to close this public hearing and look for a motion with some criteria, findings.
I'll make a motion to approve the parapet as presented.
I'll second that motion.
And it's in keeping with it is consistent with the special and defining character of the surrounding properties, and it's conserve and enhances property values. Thank you.
Alrighty. So, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Against? All right, so you have your parapet. So I guess we're going to go down. You've never been down there before.
Harry, Dave, I'm well on yourself. Yeah.
That's right, you have to do that.
So up. Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. It gives you a chance.
Next Monday. Went from one meeting in July to 3.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think you meant 16 ounce rather than 16 gauge copper on
Yeah.
the roof. You ought to watch your language.
Sorry.
Oh, or Mr. Adams will take your court here.
Well, it's a big price point.
We're going to be putting, everything on this house is going to be done at the highest quality.
Yeah, but still, 16 gauge.
And that's going to be too heavy, yeah. Here's a
Well,
tip.
that's what I approved, right?
Well,
I wonder.
16 gauge is too thin? Is that?
No, there you go.
Gauge is
Very,
about 3 times the thickness of 16 ounce.
Oh,
as you go down in gauge, it goes heavier.
yeah. So you meant to say gauge?
I meant to say ounce.
So he saved you some money.
Yes, he saved our client some.
Okay. Please introduce yourselves again, and we'll get started.
Shane Forsley with Hampshire Development.
I guess I need this.
Yeah.
Howard Spivak Architects, the architect for 129 State Street.
Okay. You want to just swing that microphone over a little bit? There you go. So this is a work session. Should be informal. So we'll try to keep it. So, what are you presenting to us?
Okay, so we have not changed the building envelope. We made a minor change to the building envelope, but fundamentally the building envelope has stayed the same. And what we've done is a series of refenestrations of the windows and adding a couple of windows. So if we start on page 2.
Is anybody seeing numbers on the page?
In the bottom center. Right. If you look at it's this page, and right here you'll see page 2.
Okay.
I can also hold it up this way.
Very much.
It didn't come through on
It didn't come through.
Okay, so it's this
Okay,
page.
you hold that up, we know that's page 2.
Right.
Yeah.
So,
I'll give this to you guys.
No,
I can look
paper.
up.
We have the pictures, we don't have the pictures.
okay, so stay there with me because I'm trying to do this by pointing this way, by pointing to you.
Now that we know.
We have this, we can see ours, we're all
Is
set.
it easier for me to do it over there? No, okay.
You do what
This
you
is this was what was approved. This is a copy of the drawing that was approved. And so the first easy one is we're adding a small window up here, which will be a double hung window matching the same as the rest of the double hung windows. And then the other change, what we're proposing is this was being done is wood. We want this to have the feeling of a solarium, and this will be made with this window set from Hope's Windows.
Watch that.
Okay.
Okay, there's a lot to remember here. Okay.
So the change would be taking it from a wood structure and wood doors to a historic steel casement window from where We haven't finalized the company, but we're probably going to be going with Hopes. They're a company that was started in 1845 that does historic wood steel windows. And the idea is to have the feeling of a solarium. And so that would be done with the steel and glass. And it'll be the divided light, and this would be the profile, and on the inside it's a flat profile. So it keeps the historic feeling. It's from a similar time period when the house was built, and we feel it just has a lighter feel. The other thing we feel that this does, which you'll see when we get to the renderings, you now see the entire facade of the historic building through the steel and glass because you have a lighter glass and steel structure so that it becomes a complementary material up against the historic wall. And then,
So I'm seeing a horizontal line that looks like windows to me.
yeah, that's the next piece.
Yeah.
And then so the next piece is to put a clear story window again with the same window system.
Wow, okay. Clear story. Does anybody else have any questions about page 2 here?
The windows above the solarium.
We'll wait to the end.
They're the same.
We'll take them all.
This window here, and these windows here, and then they turn on the next elevation are all from the same window system.
Now, how about above it?
So,
I'm sitting here, I got it. Got long arms. These windows here.
these windows here will be the same system.
Okay.
These are doors into the bedroom, and the idea is that the railing would have a similar aesthetic too, so that it's all blended in, complementary one another.
Two. Quick question. It's a square pane, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, so this is a mini version of it, but they are square panes.
Gotcha.
So, and they're all, we came up with a proportion that just continues through so that they all test together.
How is that railing different? On the second floor.
The old one wasn't really detailed before. I think it was small wood. What we're proposing is that we're taking, given this is all steel, that this becomes a steel and glass railing with the same proportions as steel below, so it just be brought up to the steel railing. So the idea is that this becomes reading like your, 1800 glass solarium, which then ties in that. We also felt it becomes an interesting piece that connects the historic structure to the newer structure and becomes this transition point. That's in keeping with the historic piece.
Would you mind passing around the sample? Would that be
Sure.
okay?
Oh, yeah. Just be careful. It's
Very heavy, I'm sure.
You want me to hold it for you, Ryan?
Would you come in? Wait till it gets to it. Throw it on his lap.
Throw it on his lap.
So Hopes is a company that dates from 1845.
Is it individual pieces of
No, if you see
insulated glass?
No, it's a one piece of insulated glass with a black, but it has a black divider. It's like sometimes when you do the non-true divided lights, they don't put a spacer in at the point of the division. This has a black spacer at the point of division, so when you're looking at it, it looks as if it's a
It's
divided
nice
light.
that it's a black spacer
Yes,
instead of
a silver
aluminum.
spacer, yes.
Yeah,
And that way you're getting the feel of the true divided light, but you have a better thermal break. And these are thermally broken windows.
All right, let's go.
Okay, then on the Sheep Street elevation, originally we had 3 windows here and 3 individual windows here.
No accidents?
Yes. And then we had the light copper roof, which we're keeping, and then here was a wall with 3 punch windows. Picking up the theme, first on the top floor, we were taking the 3 separate windows and pulling them together as 2 windows. These 5 windows are all the same size, so we made these windows slightly larger, but still keeping the same 6/6, so it's the same squares on the top. And then on the bottom, we picked up, again, keeping the theme of the steel and glass. These become 2 fixed panels and a door. And the other minor change we did is that you'll see this little projection here. we made the garage slightly larger, as the garage is really narrow and there's no room for garbage cans or anything inside when the car's pulled in. We created this little pocket here underneath the overhang so that within the garage there's space for the garbage cans.
Okay. So, what do we think about this page, Gary? Well, what else has he got to talk about on this one? You don't want to say anything about this page?
I'd like to see the whole.
Okay.
Or you want to go through the whole thing and then we'll go back?
There's only two more things. Okay. On the side, on the east elevation, we're proposing a window up at the top that would be non-operable. It'll be, because it has to be fire rated, and it'll just be a connection of 3 windows that would look like a 6/6 double hung window. Would be a 6/6 double hung window. They just wouldn't operate. Would be fixed.
These are 4/4, is that what I'm saying?
Sorry, 4/4, yes. And then on the roof plan, the other thing, sorry, there's one other thing on this elevation. It's just, no, you can't see it. We'll see, and then when we get to the elevation drawings, you'll see it. And then on the roof plan, there was the oculus. On the previous scheme, you approved an oculus. We're proposing to take out the oculus and put a slope skylight here and a hip skylight here. The skylight would stick approximately 4 inches above the roof. It'll be black steel. You won't see it from the street, which will show you with some renderings that we've prepared. So that,
You have another window.
sorry, we also have another, yes, we have another window. Actually, it'll be easier to see it on the elevations as we go through it. So this is now the Sheep Street elevation again, where you saw it in 3D before. Now you see the elevation of the 3 windows and one triple window, the 2 windows brought together in the triple, the new steel and glass. Down here you'll see a little pop-up. That's to provide a second means of egress from the cellar. This little corner here, down here. And then we've added, one from the back, we've added a double hung window over in this corner here. But we've also taken, there was a ridge vent before up here, ridge skylight up here before, we've taken it out.
Then on the State Street side, get a little,
On the State Street side, you had the oculus. You now have the hip roof and the skylight, which you'll see in the rendering that we prepared that you will not see from the street. And then you had the wall with the punched windows and the doors, and now we're proposing the steel and glass solarium that we showed in 3D.
you also have more skylights on the front.
Yes. But
Yeah.
I'd like to just get through it because we also showed the renderings that show that you don't see the skylights.
I'd like to have some discussion about this, okay? So, if I may, who would like to start off discussing pages 2, 3, 4? You don't have to, Mark, if anybody else wants to jump in.
I don't mind. Go ahead, Margo.
Well, I'm going to take a step back and say that I very reluctantly approved this original version. I approved it because it was a more modern structure. It was not an original historic building. But I was very close to saying no. I really had big concerns about how it fit into Sheep Street. I felt that to a lot of it was being blown up and made bigger to the point where it was starting to interfere with how it related to the historic structure. And all of this has just tipped it completely over the top for me. You're talking about elements that somehow you've managed to figure out a way to say that it somehow relates to this historic structure by being steel and glass. And I'm not seeing that. I'm not seeing any sensitivity whatsoever to what we're seeing on the Sheaf Street side. The buildings across the way on Sheaf Street, there's just no relationship whatsoever anymore. And I, as I said before, I was having a hard time even getting there the first time around. So for me, while somewhere else, some of these elements might be quite attractive, I cannot support something like this with this historic structure and that street. It just, I mean, you can try to convince me, but you really would have to try and tell me how it is that you can say that this somehow fits on Sheaf Street at this point.
You actually have, I don't know if you noticed it, down at the corner, which, not the Chapel Street end, but the other end.
Penn Hollow?
Penn Hollow, there's actually a really nice, up on the roof, you can see it from the street, a nice, it's actually not steel and glass, but it's wood and glass, with a solarium structure sitting on the roof, on Sheaf Street.
One. Okay, I'm talking about the whole rest of Sheaf Street. But, you know, this is
You
just
have-
one opinion, this is a work session, so.
Yeah, it's a work session. Do you have any suggestions for him?
No, I don't.
Oh, okay. All right.
Because I can't even.
Dan?
go back.
Where we're often less strict for structures that are in the back of the house, this is actually the front of everybody else's house on Sheath Street, and it doesn't fit in at all. And, yeah, solariums are nice, and the one you're showing fits in a little better because it's wooden and this heavy industrial look. I can't see how it fits in with some of the nice historic houses along that Sheath Street, which is their front, not just your back.
Okay. Quick question before I give comment. Your punch windows are also going to use the Hope system?
No, the wood window, all the double hung windows are wood double hung windows.
Okay. And but they're trying to relate. They're trying to appear that they're of the same family.
But we're using the same proportion of squares as for the wood and the steel.
Okay. To me, there's two buildings here. There's the addition that you would allow certain latitude with, and then there's the old brick section, which is there should be a little more reverence in approaching that part of this complex. I could work with you on the modern addition. To me, this is, I think you're taking a lot of liberties with this small structure. It's very modern. It kind of speaks almost Japanese-like in quality with the Soshi screens, and you're doing something very ironic where you're voiding out between the floors. So like the second floor is, you can almost say it's hovering above the first floor. And I could almost accept the poetry behind that and what you're trying to achieve architecturally. But when it comes to the older brick section, it almost becomes disrespectful in that you're taking liberties with this building that you shouldn't. And so
Liberties with the historic piece?
yeah, with the brick portion of this, the bigger brick portion versus the smaller wooden structure.
Right.
So I think for me, I could compromise and see where you could take the small structure in and be a little more abstract, a little more modern. But when it comes to the main portion, carving the roof and going with an approach that is very artistic, where you're voiding out sections of the roof that are tied, that are up against the parapet. You act like
You mean the skylight?
yeah, the skylight. The skylights is what I'm referring to.
Yeah.
Maybe that's just a little bit too far.
We're open to, because when you look at the renderings, you will not see the skylight from the street, and we can do a mock-up that shows that you will not see the skylights from the street. So we actually felt that by going to this from the Oculus, we're actually respecting the hip roof And we're doing it in such a way that we're being very sensitive that you will not see the skylights from the streets. And we're totally happy to, we're talking about the skylight will pop up from the main roof no more than 4 inches in the way we're detailing it, and we're happy
4
to do
inches.
4 inches, and we're happy to do a mock-up.
I mean, they're standard Velux.
No, we're not, the long skylight is going to be steel and glass, so it's going to be detailed in a way that it's only going to be 4 inches above the roof.
Okay, well, so we're going to continue with our comment.
So I'll keep talking about the skylight. So you have included this image here.
Yeah.
And you can see the skylight in the building next door. You can also see this pipe that probably is maybe 6 inches, 4 inches tall. But then in the picture you provided us, some reason you can't see that anymore. Are you guys changing the cornice?
No,
Because
the
if
corn-
not, this is very misleading. This picture is misleading. You can't see what you can see in this one. It's false.
It depends the angle, but again, what I'm saying
Well, it
is,
doesn't match the same slope as the parapet. You know what I mean? Like you've just created a black line. Because how come? You know what I mean? Like I can see all this stuff here,
With
but
it-
now I can't see the neighbors.
well, the way we did this is we built a 3D model, and we took the camera view from across the street on the 3D model. So, but again, what I'm saying is, we are totally happy to do a mock-up of the skylight on the roof, and everyone can walk by and see it.
I mean, I'm just saying, from my own, if I stand across the street, I can see your neighbor's skylight. So I don't understand how I would not be able to see yours.
Because it
Unless
depends
it's
on
gonna
how
be
you detail the
recessed.
sky. It depends how you detail the
Yeah, yeah.
skylight. If you
But this photo, you can't see any of the roof. Where like here, you can.
what you can,
I mean,
what you
so
can
this
see is
photo's
the
kind of
pop-up.
misleading.
Not really, because if you look at the
Well,
left, you
See,
can.
if you zoom in, you can.
You don't see the roof. You see the pop-up.
I can see shingles. All right.
Okay, we're.
Anyway.
But anyway, no,
Yeah.
No, but
It's just, I feel a little misled. I think you've taken way too many liberties. I won't be supporting this.
okay, so what I'm saying is, we can do a mock-up of the skylight.
I just, okay.
I don't feel comfortable with the proposed the work that you're, I mean, it's got a style to it. I definitely agree with that sort of Japanese quality. It sort of looks like what we think of as paper walls that we see. But I don't see the appropriateness of it. I like Margot, felt like the thing that was approved previously was, I didn't realize it was as far as I could bring myself to go, but I felt like we were really making a stretch to accommodate things. Remembering also, and this may be an unfair thing for you, but it's a fact. When we were looking at the previous application, there was a thing there that had various elements on it, and we could make swapping kinds of rational decisions about this, or the garage is going here now rather than there. And so we could do that. We could manipulate the thing that was there. Now you are at extreme liability because the only thing that is there is some foam insulation stuck to the back of a brick building. This, to me, seems like a place too far. Not a bad word, but the busyness of the square panels of glass, repeated over and over again, even bisecting the first and second floor of the addition, that band of glass. These are very clever things. You're a very creative guy. I don't think we need that kind of solution for a dwelling on the back of what we think of as a classic downtown Portsmouth brick building that has so many features that are part of our history. On a building that also, as we stand today, this is no longer an alleyway in our town. This is a substantial road where people's front doors are on this. So there's no back of the house. One strike after another. I'm frightened by this, and the carving work on the roof, whether it can be seen or not. And I question not your veracity, but your intent in those photographs that you sent us. I just question how that worked. You were intending to not show that skylight, and you managed that. But I don't believe that this is going to set benignly on the roof where no one will ever see it. And I think that the mark of this, the footprint of this, is going to be on me when I say you can do this, and I don't want that to happen.
In terms of the work, it's a working session, and the one thing that we definitely have no problems doing is a mock-up of the roof to verify that
Sure.
it.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so we have no,
But that may not be the end-all. Even if you can hide this from a passerby with an ice cream cone across the street, I still know that this thing is there, and the amount of removal that's taking place on this roof. I'm looking at it, I figure that none of the original rafters will ever be there again, if there are any left, from the last owner, and that I do not know. But I just look at the amount of
our intent.
chainsaw work.
Our intent is to replace the rafters with new rafters. We're not building the whole house. The whole interior of the historic house is going to basically be post is beams with wood decking in the original style the house was built.
Okay.
And the roof is going to be built the same way.
So I'm the only one that hasn't made any comments, and I'm afraid that I'm going to have to agree with some of these other people. I'm not sure with what you're showing for your skylights on the roof, including on State Street where it says one long horizontal skylight instead of two. Your ridge skylights, which we've seen it somewhere, and I can't think, it might even be on top of the gas light. I'm not sure where it is, but I have seen ridge skylights before. But then, that's a stretch for us. The ridge skylights would be a stretch. But then, you've gone and added 4 or 5 of your 4-inch high skylights plunging down the roof. I know that that you're an architect and I'm not, and I can see, that you have a vision for this, but I'm not seeing that it fits in our historic district. On the State Street side, I'm not so much against the new first floor, the imitation look of a greenhouse type of a look. I'm looking for the right word, and that's not it. I think that there is something down the road a piece by a brand new building that was built 5 or 6 years ago, and there's a clothing store in there, and also a wine there's a wine restaurant. So they have something like this, and I think it's successful. It's essentially just a little room that's in a corner, but they built it to have that kind of an English look or whatever. And it's something that would have been possibly on houses in the 1830s, 40s, and 50s, blah. So I'm not so much against that. It's the back, and you're wrapping your clear story windows around, I don't know. But the back of the house, as David has said, there was a structure there before that was built in the 1980s, okay? And it was smaller, but it had pretty much plain, semi-colonial features, I would say. It was clapboard. It had 6/6 windows and such like that. It wasn't by any mean any kind of high style or anything. But then they came along and copied it, a lot of the features with this plan that we have on the left-hand side of page 2. And I think that's successful. The front door is accented the way that we want that. We want our doors to be accented. We don't want to hide doors. They've got columns. Hopefully they're round columns. I can't see them. But,
no, actually, this is the exact image that was approved. There's
Yes. And the other thing is when you mull windows together, something that we have in our guidelines is we like to see a space between the windows. We don't like factory mold together windows. We want to see what we call a stud pocket. And that's just simply, even though it's not a stud pocket, but it is something that gives the windows a little historic character. So you've all eliminated all of that, and you've basically crunched all the windows together that you could by mulling them together. So you had 3 separate punched windows. They look very appropriate on the back of that building. Don't forget that you're looking over at other historic buildings across the street and such. So you've mulled 2 windows together, and the other problem that I have is that the windows, I don't think that bringing the square look of this into the 6/6 windows is right. I think it's so wrong. You know, in our historic city, all of our windows have a proportion. They're 6x8 glass or 8x10 glass or, 8x12, sometimes 10x12. They have a proportion to them, and that's something that we have tried to maintain when people come in front of us with windows. We try to maintain that proportion. And it looks to me like you've gone and squared everything off. So I can't support that either. So I guess I've probably said enough. So, what do you think?
I think adjusting the windows to having the 6x8 glass or 6x10 glass is a very easy to put a spacer in, make the space between, we have a space between them, but to make it a wider space is a very easy thing to do.
That's an easy thing, yeah.
To look at Sheet Street to make it a bit simpler is totally easy. We'd like to get the solarium facing State Street, I think, can be, as you described, a nice feature, which I think would also be more respectful to the historic structure. So we can do that. On the skylight, what I'd like to do is do a mock-up so that we can see what the impact would be to see how it feels within the house.
Well, I would just say you can do your mock-up, but it seems to me that you've got quite a bit of negative opinion on those skylights. But so, I mean, if it's going to cost a lot of money, you might want to think about your mock-up.
This mock-up isn't going to cost a lot of
Okay,
money.
all right. No, I didn't mean to try to talk you out of it, but.
I don't think that the mock-up will not cost a lot of money to put up.
All righty.
And the last thing we were trying to do is misrepresent anything in terms of the
I
presentation.
understand. Yeah. And we've had some drawings, that sometimes they don't work, and it's because the computers, the program isn't right or whatever.
The one was a photograph and one was done from a computer model, and you put a camera across the street at that height.
Also looking at page 2 on the back, your old dormer up on the 4th floor, I think?
Yes.
So you had, previously, there were 5 windows, pretty much evenly spaced, and you've gone and switched the whole thing over with 4 windows so that you could put your skylights in there. I'm really wondering what you're trying to achieve up in that room. It's going to be a rather bizarre room to have a dormer with conventional windows and a bunch of skylights zipping down.
No, because the skylight's above the staircase.
The skylights are all above the staircase.
The staircase is running along the wall.
Okay. Well, thank you. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
Drama.
Drama. Well, the Oculus is a drama.
Yeah, well, they're moving the staircase, so the Oculus is of no value at all.
You don't have, you've seen the plan, the staircase is not in the center of the house anymore.
Yeah. Okay. So any other comments before I open it up to the public? Okay. So anyone in the public would like to speak? Go ahead and certainly introduce yourself.
Yes, my name is Mark Pody, and I reside next door. And our home is the chocolate shop. I should say the building. They are a tenant of ours. That's the front. And
that's the old biker bar. I know that.
Yes. No, the biker bar was next door. This was Jay Smith that owned this originally. I'm here tonight, and I speak for 6 residents on Sheep Street and 2 businesses as part of the Sheep Street Association. I'm not here to say we're against or opposed because this is a work session. I'm here to convey the views of the neighborhood. And the views of the neighborhood have been pretty much expressed, I think, by members sitting here. But to put a finer point to them, I did extensive research at the Athenaeum regarding windows. And I was unable to find any reference to this type of window and the look. This will drastically alter, particularly on the western side, that strip of windows. And with all due respect, I think Howard is very sincere. I do not doubt his sincerity. He is coming from a different perspective than the previous architect, and we've had a lot of machinations. But from my point of view, that almost looks like a correctional set of windows, and indeed, this company manufactures they do a lot of great buildings, but they also specialize in narrow correctional windows. Most importantly, with all due respect to Howard, the structure that he mentioned on Sheep Street as part of the process of our talking among the association, that was built by Buzzy Dodge and his wife Erica. Buzzy's probably one of the foremost knowledgeable. He's past tense.
Yeah, gotta be careful with that.
And Erica's in Maine, and she expressed the view, and she's done a lot of building that doesn't fit in. Most importantly, I asked her about this, the greenhouse is what she referred to, and she said she and Buzzy built that with their own hands in the 80s. It's a wood structure, and it's in disrepair, and it was not a permanent structure. It's not a permanent structure. It was a temporary structure approved under a different set of guidelines at that time by the HDC. So I would say that there's no relevant connection to that and Sheep Street. Additionally, and I think there are others here who will speak for it, this particular design has windows that will directly overlook our building, and you'll see, again, this is the old structure, this is our deck here, and this is our rear entrance. I know that there's been some discussion that this will be their front entrance, but the front entrances of that building on 129 is on the side. That's the way it was built. That's where the entrance is. And just as my front entrance is where the chocolate shop is, this is the rear entrance. And as I think it was mentioned, for other residents on Sheep Street, that is their front entrance. Then the historical relationship, as outlined in the guidelines, is there are row houses there and brick buildings. Additionally, I want to remind the commission that the commission voted down even a condenser to the immediate west as a condo building in the backside. For reasons I'm not aware of, but I think it represents a significant concern for the visibility of that brick building. And I know, again, Mr. Speedback brings a different creative mindset, and I do speak with all due respect. The current owner is from Manhattan. His relevance is from Manhattan. And the inside of the building, again, has been totally gutted. And I know that's not your purview, but I think it's important to point out that even the spiral staircase, which was the original portion of that, has been removed. So I think there's been some liberties taken to try to modernize this building in a manner that's might be appropriate someplace else, but I don't think is appropriate here.
Okay, so you do understand that we really don't have anything to say about the interiors.
My comments are...
But we can, we're saddened
I only
by-
wanted to point out,
Yeah.
I'm responding to Mr. Spivak's representation that he's using original materials in the roof, and the fact of the matter is the entire structure has been gutted, the roof is going to be raised. I have no ability of determining that, as it was commented about the skylights, but as I said, I don't want to go on and on. I think you've
No.
heard enough.
All righty. Would you like to speak?
I will just thank you all for your comments tonight because I think you hit it right out of the park this evening. I am appalled, and I heard parts of the earlier part of today's meeting and the egregiousness of some other applications, and I just don't think that this belongs in its context here. I don't believe, and I do know, as Councilor Blaylock is reporting, it's our skylight that you can see from across on State Street, and I don't know how on God's earth you would be able to hide that. And I do think that this is a historic area, and if the historic structure of this building didn't suit the owner, they should not have they shouldn't have come here, period. Thank you.
All right, is there any other comments? Yes.
Jim Keane, I'm at 123 State Street, the direct abutter to 129.
Jim, would you like to sit here?
No, I'm good.
Okay.
A few,
Very polite of you.
a few specific comments. There's been a lot of generalities, but I have a couple issues that I just want to get out so that you can be aware of a few things. Isaac, could you go to, I guess, page 2? The one elevation that shows the lot line wall.
Is that the correct page?
No.
Go back.
Go.
2 of 2.
To go.
Would that be for the?
Okay, we could use that one. There's another one that shows that elevation, but we can use that one. That lot line window. I did a little research, and it seems building code says that if a building has a wall that sits directly on the property line, it has to meet fire resistance requirements for the roof overhangs and have no exterior wall openings. Okay. Now, that's a lot line window. So if anything, it would have to pass fire code. Now, it's spec'd out as a wooden double hung window. Obviously, that's not a fire code,
No.
fire approved window.
And we're just talking design, and this is a work session.
Yep.
And our building inspector is certainly aware of the fire codes.
Okay, but if you're going to look to approve something, it obviously has to be constructible. And what's identified in these plans is not something that's constructible. So, so in terms of constructability, I know it's not exactly HTC's purview. But when you look at this, it's a residential structure that doesn't have to go to technical advisory committee. Commercial buildings do, but residential doesn't. But we're in downtown, we're in a close proximity, 0 lot line properties, a wall that's being constructed on the lot line, excavation directly against our driveway to a full basement, an excavation going down upwards of 15 to 17 feet for a wine cellar. I strongly urge that this gets sent to technical advisory. I know it's not HTC's purview, but I needed to voice that concern. And then lastly, Isaac, if you could go to sheet 3 of 8. What was approved on the left and what's being presented on the right, if that wall is directly on the lot line, okay, that shows a soffit overhang. Maybe it's a foot, maybe it's 15 inches. That's overhanging my property, which I don't believe could ever be constructed. So either the wall is not on the lot line, which there's no lot line shown on any of the plans. Previous plans showed it being built on the lot line, but that soffit is overhanging the property line, which would have to not be constructed. So couldn't be approved the way it's shown or even reviewed. So they would have to build the wall straight up without a soffit at all.
What can you say about that?
But which one, the lot line
The
window?
lot line thing, yeah.
Okay, the lot line window, there was,
Not the window, but-
Okay. The lot line, it's a bigger issue that I think, so there's been negotiations between the two in terms of drainage from their roofs and other issues, and I think it's something that has to be worked out between Bill and them.
We have an agreement with Mr. Doyle that's been signed
Yeah.
that had to do with the parapet and had to do with an easement on his property. Has nothing to do with a soffit.
The soffit is actually replacing the this, I don't want to get into the legal right now because it's
Yeah.
not my purview,
Yeah.
but the soffit that is on the original approved plans is the same soffit that was already on the original house.
The building.
This is not our purview either, you know.
Well, I would think the soffit would be.
Soffit, the design of it is,
Correct.
but whether or not it can be built or not, that isn't. You know, that's not our thing.
But if you
But it isn't.
approve something that can't be built, then they would just have to come back to you
There you go.
That's what they
again.
do.
On the nose.
Exactly,
We
and
just, but this keeps us from having to go through this all the time, second guessing everything that's going on. I mean, let's face it, these two buildings were kind of commingled. Your deck on the second floor of your building was attached to that wall that was removed. You had to put a post in to support it when they did the excavation work. So there's a lot of commingling that's gone on, and maybe some in the future. How you handle it, you can get an easement for that thing. I'm not sure if you can get an easement for putting a window in a wall, but maybe you can. But we don't know these things. We've had other issues that have cropped up in other projects. As a matter of fact, one that you're working on, the old Murchison building.
Correct.
You put windows in a wall that I'm certain you can't do, except you went out and got an easement to do it from the owners of the other property. So things can be arranged. You know, and maybe there's a trip to Aruba in it for you, you know? I don't know.
And if I may jump in just for a second here.
Certainly.
Our role in the project as contractor and construction manager, you know, we've had extensive talks with the building inspections department, zoning enforcement, so on and so forth, to figure out how, you know, sites like this, zero lot line, where you share a common wall with a neighbor, how you can build the code, meet all the requirements, and develop a structure in form that complies. And so through meeting with Shanti and Timothy and Paul at the building department, as well as Pat Howe from the fire department, I mean, these are all discussions and these are moving parts. It isn't necessarily your guys' purview. I appreciate that you have input and a lot of you have expertise in it. But there's a lot that happens behind the scenes to get those things answered with the help of the consultants as well as everybody from the city. So we're working on it.
Yeah, so I'm sure you are, you know, and he has to work with the building inspection department. So we've heard some comments, and we've all made some comments. Oh, I'm very sorry.
Jeremiah Johnson, how are you? Been a while since I've seen some of you folks. 4 Fairview Drive here in Portsmouth, also licensed architect. So I feel like I can speak to a couple of these things. Full disclosure, I'm here as friends of Barb and Jim, the next door neighbors. I appreciate all your comments. I also appreciate the design. I actually think it's quite tasteful to some degree. I do think it's important that we note, especially here in the HDC, in right downtown historic district, we've torn down a building. It's gone. I'm sure you've seen it if you've walked the site, that we're basically replacing with generally the same building with a couple of accoutrements that are different. I find that's a little bit weird to begin with, but at the same time, I also think it's a place where we can forgive some of the sins that have been done in the past. We're in a zero lot line area, and it's kind of like play along, get along with most folks, right? So a couple of the issues, I'm going to reiterate mostly what Jim said, but I appreciate what Shane said too. Working with the building department, that's great. I understand there are certain things that are not in your purview. I've been coming before you guys for 20 years now, so I know what your purview is, right? I've also been on the zoning board for 8 years. I know what the zoning board purview is. I know what the zoning ordinance is. I know what the building code is. So 0 lot line windows, constructability of things like that, it's a super challenge. I totally get it, and I understand that you guys aren't tasked with figuring that stuff out. But I do think it's important to have on the record that you're reviewing a design that is going to come back to you with an admin approval for changes, because it's not going to be constructible. It's not going to get a building permit. It's not going to get a building permit on any project I've ever worked on. Demising wall, window, 0 lot line, building code says 0 to 3 feet, 0 openings in the wall, unless you do an extremely, steel frame, unoperable window, things like that. Right now, the window that's spec, I understand, complete respect to the builder and architect. I'm not here to trash anybody. I'm just pointing out the to me, some of the obvious faults and things that I think are important to be on the
And
record.
comments on the design is what we're looking at.
I'm
That's
talking
that's our
about the
purview.
window that's in the
That's our
design.
purview.
Okay, so the roof overhang, I think, is a huge issue because we're representing a roof overhang that crosses over to a property line that is not owned by the building owner, so that is a design issue. We would really want to look at an elevation that showed what was going to be built, because what we're looking right now is a unicorn. It's not going to happen. I would agree with Jim too, just again from being my extensive use and land use history here in the city, because it's a downtown mixed use property embedded amongst a bunch of commercial uses. I do think that it should be recommended to go to TAC. There's no parking. There are a lot of other issues that these folks don't have to deal with, and I completely agree with that. But I do think that TAC, having those other folks, which is what fire, police, planning, building department, all these other folks to take a bite of this and make sure that we're getting it right while we're doing it. Snow removal on that back street, garbage, all these different things. Yep. Okay. Okay. So I understand that you seem to not want to hear my comments, but I do have the right to be here to speak these comments. Okay. And then I guess the last question I have from an architect standpoint is how you're going to build that wall.
Okay, there we go. But that's your comment that they cannot build the wall.
Well, not on a 0 lot. I mean, how are you going to build it?
Yeah.
So if it's an unbuildable wall with an unbuildable window that doesn't meet building code with an overhang that crosses over a property line, then we're not looking at something that's realistic.
Yeah.
I guess is my general point.
Okay.
I understand that you're going to say it's not your purview, but I guess my point is, so we'll be back here in 5 months because Shanti has told us that we need to have a
So be it.
review.
I think at this point, just list your concerns, and
I did.
we just won't. We're not going to answer them because that's not our
I
area of
understand, but
expertise.
I do feel like the curseness of your response to
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm very sorry.
Just
Thank you.
to be honest with you.
Is there more? Because if there's more, I'd like to have it all out and have it said. But you'll understand that we'll respond to things that fit our purview, and we won't respond to things that don't.
No, I think that's it.
Okay. Thank you.
No, I think these are all very good
Yeah.
points.
They need to be heard, but if
We were too curt.
Yeah.
Maybe, no.
Oh, let me know, please.
No, not at all.
is there anybody else?
I was too curt.
Someone else.
I am.
Anybody else?
And I am. All right. So we have heard quite a few comments from the public and from us. I tend to think that I know that you still want to work up some design and show us something about the skylights. And, you've already heard quite a few comments about the skylights. What I would, if I was to round it up, I would say that, something that you might have to do is try to maintain a traditional look and do what you want on the inside. You've already gutted the building, so if the inside's going to be all stainless steel and glass or something, well, so be it. But I can't see that bringing it out to the building, and a few people liked your little clear story wrap. A lot of people didn't. So I think that you could go back on YouTube and listen to this whole thing again, and come back to us.
No, I've heard your comments, and I think we have an approach which we'll come back to, that we'll find a happy middle ground or a happy way of maintaining what I heard is that Sheath Street is very important, and you feel that what we've done on Sheath Street is not respectful to Sheath Street, so we'll study Sheath Street some more, get the proportion of the windows on Sheath Street, and get that. I heard that you were open to the solarium in the garden on State Street, and that...
I think that was just me, but
Okay.
I'm not
But-
sure. I don't think anyone thought it was awful. It's just, you know, it's a problem.
And with regard to the skylights and Sheath Street, I would just like to point out that this isn't just a matter of what can be seen from the street. There are also people who are living up a couple of stories. And a simple skylight, you know, usually that one skylight is not a big issue. But you're talking about a substantial roof view that people who live in a two-story building across the way are going to have a really good look at out of their windows. And I think that's important to keep in mind.
Yep.
Are we continuing to?
So moved.
Do you need 1 month or 2 months to continue to the next August?
I have to go back, and I'll let Isaac know when we can come back.
That works.
Yeah, we'll likely be back next month, but if we feel like we need some more
It's
time.
easy to postpone.
Correct.
So
Yeah,
a motion to continue to next month's
Yeah.
meeting.
Thank you.
Second. All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Against? All righty, thank you very much.
Thank you.
So you figure steel cladding that wall or putting a brick veneer on it? Hard rock. The property line wall.
So,
Parapet? No, the wall. Oh, the wall.
so it needs to be 1 hour.
Can you get it?
No, there's actually a material. Has a- rigid wall insulation on the exterior of the house, so. And then you have your siding, so the 2 inches of the height of the rock wall insulation, it's compressed, you walk on it. That has fire rating.
We're burning daylight, folks.
Why don't we take a break?
No, but I will. I'll just say something. Oh, that was nice. You want to hit the gavel and say we're taking a break?
No, I don't, but
I think we are.
that's what you've done. That's what you've done.
Okay, we're going to take a 5 to 10 minute break. To 10. We're back. So we have the petition of Charles J. Silver Jr. and Margaret M. Moran, owners for property located at 434 Marcy Street, wherein permission is requested to allow new construction to an existing structure. Create second floor and attic addition over existing one-story footprint with overhang. Create a one-story rear entry and a bay addition with new landing and stairs, and remove and replace the existing shed. As per plans on file in the planning department, said property is shown on Assessor Map 102 as Lot 41, lies within General Residence B and Historic Districts. So who is here to present this?
Good evening, Ann Whitney, architect, project. We were here in May for a work session, and now we're back. You look at the site plan, things really haven't changed that much. We've just got more detail. Basically, that one-story shed roof addition off the back, we'll be taking the roof off of that and then going up with a story and a half with the attic, and then a little one-story entry addition, bay and shed, just giving a locale there. The photo on the upper right, the view down that alley, so the view of this addition is pretty minimal. The building next on lot 78 is very close, and that's the view down the existing left side elevation. And the other picture is just a general sense of the front of the house, which we aren't going to be doing anything. Second page shows the rear addition with the story and a half addition over the existing. And then the entry addition bumps out from that a bit, and you'll see on the next page how that works. We have a dormer in the attic coming in 3 feet on either side. So that edge of that dormer won't be view of that. If you're looking at it now on the right side, but it's really the left side elevation that would not be visible from any street. Basically, we've got a gang of windows in the kitchen on the first floor, basically 6 over 6 and 4 over 4. On the second floor, similar size window to the existing windows on the existing dormer in the attic there. Because we're more than 20 feet above the grade level, there's a code requirement that you need a balcony if the sill height of the window. And I might still work on the building department on that issue, but right now, as far as I read it, we're going to have to put a little balcony on that side. The overhang, it's going to be structurally not needing brackets, but I thought putting some brackets on either side of the kitchen windows, and then again where the entry roof overhangs the landing, there'll be a bracket on that side. And the photos there show the existing bay that's there now in the shed. And the photograph of the rear yard, there's nowhere to really see that. I was in the driveway of 28 South Street to be able to get that photograph. So the 2 side elevations, right side, the cross section of the existing house, the bay, the roof line of the bay, will continue with a little gable that's over that entry, so it'll give it a little bit of weather protection when you enter that door. And the peak of it, is right on the edge of the overhang. We'll do vertical board skirting. The bay and the 1-story addition will just be on posts. We'll just do vertical board skirting on that side. Casement windows in the dormer, and another 4 over 4 on that right side elevation. Left side elevation shows the existing building, the existing foundation with the overhang with a bracket, and again, similar casement windows in the attic. And you can see in the distance the edge of that entry addition, which wouldn't have any windows. Proposing to use the Elevate, Marvin Elevate. It's all in the back of the house. There are fiberglass windows we've gotten approval for before. The last page just says the window schedule, and then, typical landing and steps, basically a wood posts and balusters and, traditional wooden handrails painted. The shed, the existing shed that there's now is fairly tight to where this addition's going to be, so proposing taking that down, and then a new 8x14 shed that would be up on the right-hand rear corner of the building. So basically, just a simple shed with a tongue and groove door and a couple of small casement windows.
And is this a prefabricated shed from
It
somewhere?
could be,
or
but,
is it-
some of those companies, we can, actually have some input on, windows and things. So this is what we're getting approved and it's what we're going to have to build, so we're going to have to work that out. Yeah.
Thank you.
And then they had found a company, and so I looked at their drawings, and this is fairly similar. The only real difference is the windows were pretty crummy, and so you could even get the shed without the windows and just put regular windows into them. Yeah. That's pretty much it. I don't think I missed anything.
Do we have any questions or comments for Ann?
I know at the work session, there was a little heartburn over the dormer that would be on the left side property line. But I feel like you really, I have to show it in elevation, so it's very stark like that, but there's no way you are actually going to be able to see it because it steps in from the front and from the side. And I think the benefit of having that little bit of extra headroom up there far outweighs, not being able to see it from anywhere. So we decided to keep that in. That was the one thing that there was some heartburn at the work session.
Nobody's got anything.
No, most of this addition is in the back, although in the back, it is visible, from, it's like South Street as you get the, but I don't think it's, necessarily a bad thing.
And, yeah, we've gotten BOA approval since the work session. I did the work session first to get your sense, and then we got BOA last. And both the most immediate abutters have, all three immediate abutters have supported what we're doing here. We worked with them
I appreciate
a bit
you.
on
Yeah.
that.
We always appreciate you working with your neighbors.
Yeah.
But yeah, I can see what you're saying by the dormer is hidden behind the original roof ridge, so it is contained in the back. In this, yeah, I'll be supportive of this.
Mr. Adams?
Mr. Chairman, thank you very much. I think I was probably the dissent on the work session about the crowded feeling of all of this going on the roof. I find that unlike any dormers that I'm familiar with, in the density of it all, to me this seems like a form, while it's derivative, as you show us photographs of things that have bays and dormers. Thank you very much. But as a whole, I find this kind of unprecedented, and I'm not certain that just because you can't, it's not on the main drag, that it doesn't matter. To me, I can't stop thinking that it matters. So, not a fan.
Anybody else? Margot? No. Okay, I'm going to open this up to the public. All righty. So would anybody in the public like to speak about this addition on Marcy Street? Nobody's raising their hands or coming up? Nobody's online? So I guess I'll close this public hearing. And we're looking for a motion.
I will make a motion to approve as presented.
And I will second.
I believe it maintains the special character of the district and is compatibly designed with surrounding properties.
All righty, that does it then. So all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Against? Opposed? Mr. Adams. All righty, so you have your approval. So right now, we have to say goodbye somewhat to Margot, who is going to,
Relocate.
she's going to relocate and will be coming back to us via the speakers in the ceiling. So, we're now into the petition of Northern Tier Real Estate Acquisition and Development, LLC owners for property located at 172 Hanover Street, wherein permission is requested to allow exterior renovations to an existing structure. Remove the existing doorway and replace it with a new window. As per plans on file in the Planning Department, said property is shown on Assessor Map 126 as Lot 1A, lies within Character District 5, Downtown Overlay, and Historic Districts. So who here is to present this?
Brian Radonitz, Coastal Architects, representing Northern Tier.
Welcome.
Thank you. Well, we have one of the loveliest old historic buildings still intact. And I think in this case, what we're trying to do is, or what we'd like to do is, on the rear of the building, and if you go to the page that we submitted, it's titled 27th of June. Yeah. You can see I've got arrows pointing to the back of the building. That's kind of a view looking up up the street a little bit. But from the rear of the building is a dormer, and you can see it on the lowest picture. That dormer marches across the whole building, and at some point in history, somebody took out a window and put in a door. And the current owners are, we've been working with the building department, and we've got plans in process to convert that upper area into two apartments. And it's been, we passed the code reviews, and everything's in order with the building department. We're here to ask you to take out that door and put a custom window that matches the size and the features of the existing windows. That can't be seen from any of the streets. You'd have to, I don't know what you'd have to do, get up in a drone view or something to really see the back of the building. But the lower two pictures give you the location of that door, and I think there's one more picture down lower which shows the views of the top picture is the view looking down the dormer, and the middle picture is looking across the flat roof deck to the building that's being renovated right now. And then the lower picture is just a quick shot of the interior. You can kind of get the feeling of that short, steep step that was put in to access that door that they put in. It's really not an ideal situation as a door anyway. But the owners are also looking to take that metal fire escape that's on the access way at the that one that shows there with the arrow, the middle picture. Yeah, the owners would like to take that off the building, which I don't think that should be a hardship. It's not really a thing of beauty. I think in a nutshell, that's it. Any comments?
I'm feeling a little let down. You usually come in with
things, you know?
Things.
So your intent is to have this new window match, is the old frame still there?
The old frame is there.
And so your new match is of the sash in operation,
Yeah.
less the metal ladder?
Yeah, well, it's custom-built window. It'll go in exactly the same, the mullion and Munton profiles will be identical. And it meets all of the latest building codes, of course.
Thank you very much.
So, thank you.
No. Okay.
Got it.
Would anyone in the public like to speak of this proposal? We don't see anybody online. So I'm going to close this and look for a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve this application as presented.
Very good.
Second that.
All righty.
I believe that it will maintain the special character of the district and is certainly compatible with the architecture of the building.
Certainly is. All righty. So all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
And against? So do you have your approval?
I'm still feeling a little let down.
Yeah, I know it.
Next time.
Just to think we're officially postponed this work session. So just,
We didn't.
no, so just when we get down to the next one, just make sure we do that. This seems fun.
Oh, there's a postponement there. Yeah, so we'll do two.
There's actually one more here, John, as well, if you want to just do all three together.
Yeah, so we're going to do, we're going to postpone this one, this one.
That was an easy one.
Where's what's the other one?
Oops, two postponements.
This one here. Okay. We got three to postpone.
It's not coming tonight.
That's fine. Okay, bear with me now. I'm kidding. To do, that was Hanover Street.
Removal of the tree. I don't think it's
So we're going to, it almost makes sense to postpone all of these now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just so we don't forget.
One thing I wanted to
So
ask.
our next petition here is requested to postpone. And so, as Isaac has already found something that I've done wrong, which is skip another one back A. So I'm going to read these. That would be under work sessions. Request to postpone. Work session requested by Christopher Daniel Freund, owner for property located at 37 Prospect Street. And I think that's enough. And then I'm going to read the request to postpone petition of Coventry Realty LLC owner for property located at 111 State Street. I'm going to postpone. Is there anything else on this page? It's over here. Request to postpone a work session requested by John Galt, owner, for property located at 14 Market Square. And that's it. So we have these three items to postpone. If we could just have that motion.
Second.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Against? All right, thank you very much. Now, we're down to number 5. Petition of 202 Court Street Property Group LLC owner for properties located at 202 Court Street, wherein permission is requested to allow exterior renovations to an existing structure. Install a Nana door where one currently does not exist, as per plans on file in the Planning Department. Said property is shown on Assessor Map 116 as Lot 35, lies within Character District 4-L1 and the Historic Districts. So who is here to present this?
Matt Rushton, I'm the owner of 202 Court Street.
Welcome.
Good evening to the chairman and council. Try to keep this short and sweet. The building has 2 units in it. My living space is on the second and third floors of the building. There's 3 changes I want to discuss today. The first change, we're adding a fireplace to the back of the second floor. To allow for that, we need to add a vent to the exterior of the building, also on the second story. It's just a 9x9 vent, a square vent. It will be visible from the parking lot of the fire station next door, and also visible from some of the units in the apartment complex on the other side of the fire station. So that's the first item. Second item, there is a deck also in the rear of the second floor. There's two changes happening to the deck. Where the door used to be, we are changing it to a window. That window will match all of the other windows in the building, with the exception of it will be a little narrower to fit the space. Again, just like the vent, it's visible from the parking lot of the fire station and also from some of the units in the apartment complex on the other side of the fire station. So that's the second change. The third and final change is adding a folding wall onto the deck. So the folding wall, the manufacturer's Nano Wall, it will consist of 3 doors, largely glass doors. There will be a small aluminum frame around the door, painted black, which will be the same color that the windows are painted. The 3 doors will be 9 feet long, and the doors are each 8 feet tall. The deck itself is 16 feet long, so that gives you some sense of how the doors fit in relation to the deck. And again, just like the vent and just like the window, it's visible from the parking lot of the fire station and for some of the units in the apartment complex on the other side of the fire station. So that's really it. I will only add that there are some other Nano Walls that have been installed downtown. 35 Market is an example of that. I have some pictures if you want to see it. And with that, I'll open it up to questions.
On the window that you're moving or changing from a door,
yep.
Are you going to have that window set with its head height the same as the
Same
other
head
windows
height.
on that wall?
Same head height.
Is the casing of the Nano door going to be the same as the casings of the windows?
Yes, it should match.
And I can't see the bottoms of either of these things from any place that I can get to. So I guess, thank you very much.
My only question would be, like, I'm not too concerned, but where the vent, just where, would it be on the first floor, the second floor?
It'd be on the second floor.
Floor?
Yeah.
Okay, you said on the fire station side?
It's in the rear of the building,
Yep,
so it's
okay.
right in the back against the back wall.
Oh, okay, awesome, okay.
Yeah, you
I
can
missed
see
that.
it right there.
Thank you. Okay.
All right, nope, nobody over here. I would just hope that you stress to your roofer to flash that door, that Nano Wall.
I will do that.
Because that will, I mean, that thing is, if you start having problems with it, they just don't go away.
Right,
So
understood.
that's just a comment. So is there anybody in the public would like to speak on this project? Doesn't seem to be anybody. Close this public hearing and.
Thank you.
For a motion. You're welcome.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to move that we approve this application as presented.
Second?
I feel as it helps maintain the special character of the neighborhood and is compatible with the architecture of the area.
Very good. All righty. So all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? You have your permission. And, last one.
Going to kind of miss this.
Oh, is it going to be a work session?
Yes.
Who put this schedule together? It's a work session, should be all together. So we have one more work session down at the table. This is requested by Allison Mullaney. Did I say that right? Melanie. What's the matter with me? Anyway, Piper, owner for property located at 236 Union Street, wherein permission is requested to allow new construction to an existing structure. Add second floor addition over the existing footprint as per plans on file in the planning department. Said property is shown on Assessor Map 135 as Lot 22 and lies within General Residence C and Historic Districts. So, let's go down. Welcome, please introduce yourselves, and, we'll just let you make a little presentation, and we're going to be back and forth. You've seen this all before.
Okay, that's great. I'll kick off. My name's Richard Lowe. I represent Kaplan Thompson Architects, who are working with Melanie Piper Allison, the owner of the property.
My surname is Allison. The Pipers are wonderful people. I don't get invited to their Thanksgivings
anymore.
Not my last name.
Yeah.
All right.
And my colleague Sarah Spielman is here, also from Kaplan Thompson Architects.
Okay. You have to give me a minute to catch up here. I don't see you. Oh, yeah. Fire station. Yeah, do you have other copies of that?
I don't.
Okay, that's
but
all right.
You have it on your screens, and
We'll just look at it.
okay.
Oh, there's a microphone there. You really can't abuse it.
Was this your building? Did you design this?
Yes, that's correct. That's part of the context, which is we are doing an addition to the existing building. The addition is entirely on the second floor, sits above the existing first floor footprint. It's entirely clear of the setbacks, and it's essentially a one-room addition, providing a new studio, and some storage areas. And there is a roof deck at the back of that
Start
structure.
at the beginning, then.
So it's the addition is 400 square feet, the enclosed portion of it, so it's fairly small. The roof deck is 118 square feet. The existing building was subject to HDC approval and zoning board approvals back in 2016 and 2015, and the house structure was a new construction replacing an existing structure on the property, and we went through an extensive historic review process. The application extensively looked at similar historic projects in the neighborhood, and the approved project created similar massing, similar forms, and window-to-wall proportions, the window shape proportions, but it was not a historic replica. The intention was to create a modern house that fitted within the historic fabric. So we matched the form and massing, but not the detail. The addition follows that same pattern. The addition also uses the same materials as the existing house. It's the same gabled roof pitch as the existing house, and even some of the windows facing the street will be reused from the existing house. The back of the house where we're adding on this room has two windows which will be reused. The cladding materials will also match the existing. So
When you say match existing, the cladding is horizontal in one part of the building and vertical in the other. So which is you're speaking of?
You're correct to point that out. So that portion of the back of the building currently has vertical wood cladding, and the new addition, which is on the second floor, we're proposing horizontal wood cladding, which is intended to have the same finish as the existing cladding below, but because we think that it would be a challenge to try to match the vertical boards with the horizontal joint between the existing and the new, we think a more successful approach would be to turn it horizontal but have the same finish. So it would be a change in texture, if you like. The portion of the existing house close to the road already has horizontal boards, but with a dark finish. So the new materials at the back will weather to the same finish as the existing cladding, but will have the horizontal appearance.
They all have shiny nails on it also, like the front.
The cladding at the back has concealed fixings, so that would be what we're proposing here.
Interesting. Kind of a struggle to take something that's so capped off, like the addition, the part of the building that's in the back, and extending that up. Is there any instrument that you're planning on utilizing to make that passage, that transition take place?
So, I'm not quite sure I
Big, heavy flashing, strip of wood running horizontally or material?
Oh, the transition of one material to another, the literal
It's
between
all
the
it's all in
existing
the transitions.
and that detail, yes. That's a detail that we'll have to focus on. I expect there would be a flashing detail between those two materials. It's not likely that it would be one we want to highlight with, a strong contrast material. I think we would want to play that down.
Any questions, comments?
This was approved in 2015?
I thought it was something in the water.
I wasn't here.
2016.
Were you the architect to the original?
Yes.
You must be very persuasive. But
Well, I can give you a little more background if you're.
No, we don't
like,
need the
but-
background now. I think
No,
we're just,
okay.
we're trying to ask him any questions.
Well, it might be relevant to the.
Okay?
Well, in
Ask your question.
some ways, I feel it is, because the proposed work that we have in front of us now is a direct extension, if you like, literal extension to the existing structure, which went through the historic review and process and got approval and was deemed to preserve the intent of the district, maintain the character of the district and complement the character of the district. So we're doing more of that. The part of the context was that the previous structure on the property was an auto body workshop which straddled the entire width of the property. So our intention was to create a new residential structure, 2 units, where the structure closest to the street closely matched the form and scale and massing of the typical relatively small residential projects in the neighborhood. At the back of the property, we allowed the project to become more modern, hence the flat roof, and a series of corner windows which provide better daylight and sun access to the back garden. You'll see on the north point on the site plan shows that north is about 45 degrees to the lot lines, and so that those corner windows at the back of the property, which cannot be seen from the street, provide good solar access into the living spaces and good access to the pocket garden at the back. And so the overall, the new structure appears from the street at first glance to fit comfortably with the historic nature of the district, while the back of the property is considerably less so, recognizing that it's an entirely new structure.
I will just simply say that I like what the rules are broken here, and you're continuing to follow the rules that were laid down originally. I think the massing is much nicer. The addition and things complement what's there and also complement the neighborhood, and you're successfully pulling off, a scale that and an overall language is residential. So I think that this is very well done.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think what you're doing here, you're keeping consistent with what was done before. I think I think you actually have some smart ideas. In fact, not trying to do all vertical and match that, and just, I know I've always been told, if you know you can't do it, then don't do that. So I appreciate that. And again, this isn't, I just helped your neighbor keep her brick sidewalks there. But I know this isn't front and center, Yeah. So I think this is an appropriate, location where we have, this is a little bit more modern, you know what I mean, than the old historic, the typical historic houses that we do see.
I think that's reflective of where it is. which
Exactly, that's what I'm saying.
Next
That's what
door
I'm-
is not in the historic district.
Right, exactly, you're right on the edge.
And also it's
If
between
you go the other way-
downtown and
Yep.
the Wild West End,
Yep.
and I think that it's sort of is reflective of that.
Yeah, obviously, so if this was, the middle, Pleasant Street or something, we'd be probably thinking a little differently.
A little differently.
Absolutely.
A little differently. David, do you have any other comments?
No.
My whole problem is looking at construction, is looking at this addition, falling short of connecting to the back roof of the original, the portion that's right on the street, and just, to me, it just looks awkward as a former retired builder. Just looks awkward. I'm sure with the right amount of flashing that it might work.
You're referring to the street end of the
Yes.
gable
Exactly.
directly above the garage door.
Well, we live in an area where it snows.
Yes. Yeah. Which may be why they're replacing the flat roof also. Could that be?
Yeah.
No, I need a studio.
Actually, this part here.
Yes, so
This roof.
the roof plan does show that we have separated the end of the new gable from the rear face of the existing gable.
Yeah.
And yes, there is a small channel, if you like, where water and snow.
Will build up.
Right,
How
so
visible is that from the side if one were to head towards Middle Street?
we have some 3D views at the back of the package.
Okay. All right. Silly me.
And it shows exactly, I think, that view that you're looking for. So page
These are very good. Thank you.
labeled A 9.1
Yep.
as both photos of the existing conditions at the top of the page and 3D views from an architectural model with the camera view set as best as we can approximate to match those photos.
Looks pretty prominent. If you look at the one with the on the right-hand side of the screen, yeah.
Right, right bottom view.
The fact that those two roofs, or that roof and that gable end, don't actually connect.
Disengaged, right.
So it's
By sitting over the garage, however, it seems to, anchor it a little bit better than just floating on top of another addition.
We have a comment from Margot. Would you like to let her speak,
I
John?
don't know. Should we? Certainly.
Thank you, John. So when I first looked at this, I was not part of the commission when this structure was originally approved, so I appreciate the history behind what was there and the idea of the house on the street not being a historic structure, although it mimics a lot of the historic forms. So my initial concern on this was the comparison of the addition versus in mass and size compared with the historic looking structure on the street. I think perhaps knowing that that is not a historic structure, it becomes less of an issue from our guideline point of view, but I still have a few concerns just from if this were a modern house, and it is, with a more modern addition on the back, how these two relate to each other in terms of size and mass. So I'm not opposed to what you're proposing, but I would look forward to seeing the next iteration, see how some of these details work out.
Okay, I think it may be worth noting that the new addition, the gable is smaller, the ridge is lower than the existing volume close to the street, so it is intentionally read as a secondary volume set further back from the street.
I appreciate that point. I think it's the combined volume of the old edition with the new edition, so that now the total mass behind that smaller front structure, it's just getting bigger. And
I see, yep.
Thank you.
So unless there's any other discussion, I could open this up to the public, see if there's anybody out there. Or anybody in the public?
No one online?
No one online? So do you feel that you want to continue this as a work session? Or come back to public hearing where you get approval or not?
It sounds like there's general comfort with the proposal. Some more confirmation of details of the material transitions.
Yes, we would need all of that for a public hearing also.
I would think to concentrate on the transition details. The assumption is that many of the things that we're going to see, window details and whatnot, on the front of this will act like the front of the building, and those things were on the back will act like the back of the building.
And you need to see those details.
But it'd be lovely.
Yep.
And honestly, not to push it too far, but you probably could get by a bunch on snapshots of the existing.
Right.
If that's your interest, to copy that. You don't have to go through the whole process of detailing it out for us. I think we're pretty much everybody can pretty well see, because we're only on the outside, but everyone can pretty well see where you're going with this. I think, I won't say it's transparent, but we pretty much can wrap our heads around it. So it should be details, materials, ready to go.
Yeah.
And Ryan's going to vote for it for sure.
So I guess
We
that,
need stuff like this in town, you know.
I disagree completely, completely.
We had,
Gate Street would look nice.
we had strong support from the Historic Preservation, I can't remember the name of the civic organization.
That's a
but
shame.
I belong, isn't it? Portsmouth Advocates. They showed up, I had no idea, I didn't ask them to, they showed up and said, yes, to
great.
echo and respect and rhyme, but not copy.
But doesn't it, I'm sorry, I hate to do this, but doesn't it seem like you're actually mocking our historic architecture by making things that almost look like it, but then stopping short, setting a bit of a pitched roof over the front doorway, but not putting any brackets or any form of support on it, putting a roof on your building, but not giving any structure or depth or cornice
Mr.
or
Adams, are you
line?
inviting me to have Philip Geary come and design my house? Yes.
So cool.
So,
Not in my district, you're not.
okay.
Right,
So-
but this is what we have to do to be in this
And
district.
this is what we
And it's
have.
our district, right?
This is what we have, David,
Today
right
it's
here.
mine.
That's also mine.
I
So-
share it
It's
with a few
ours.
close friends.
So I guess
We
that
could be friends.
we could just let the work session fade away, and you would make an appointment with Isaac to
To
get a
make
public
an
hearing.
application, right.
So, thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right.
Thanks for being patient.
Yeah, thank you.
Last one's always, you
Yeah,
never know.
You earned it, yeah.
No problem.
Waiting for us
Fourth quarter.
when we're closed.
So moved?
Yes, second motion. All those in favor? Aye. There we go, we're gone.